Also a great number for the super text line, and you may do that, and you'll get directly to us. Now, we are on location. We're at the GlockStore, McGill's world-famous GlockStore, providing excellent customer service, superior product, all those things that you'll be hearing about this from time to time today. And I invite you to stop by and say hello to us. If you don't know where we are, just off of we're on Airlane Drive. That's just off of Elm Hill Pike, and it's really right off of Briley Parkway 155. So it's easy to find if you just type in McGill's GlockStore. Your GPS, whatever you use, Garmin, your service within your automobile, it will get you here post haste, and we would love to see you. And as I've been mentioning on my radio show over the last couple of weeks, you can come and lay down a time and try to beat the old Matt Murphy when you do. And we've got more information about that when you stop by GlockStore. Chris Weber's back in the control area, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. I know that we don't have Mac Morey on news.
Yes, we do.
Oh, do we? How
Hello.
did we get you? Hey, Mac Morey, how did we get you on? You've been here all the day. How did we get you on news too? How are we blessed with that? That's so good.
You know, I got to make it happen, Matt. That's what we do. It's the magic of radio, right? Come on.
You and Mason are blowing and going today. I mean, no disrespect to Chris Weber, but my goodness gracious.
Hey, I don't want any part of what Mason went through.
No, absolutely not. Seriously. Way to go, Mason.
You and I, Weber, we're old timers. We've been there, done that, right?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. My time has passed on that.
Is my camera on right now? Can everyone see me on the Super Talk TV side of things?
We can see you, yeah.
I hope they're watching as they're don't mind me, guys. It's like they're making a bed and I'm in it. Is what's happening right now. They're putting the table skirt on the table, and don't mind me.
Tucking you in.
Don't mind me. Just do a little radio show over here. It'll be fine. Oh, well, we've got to make sure everything looks nice for Super Talk TV, and it does. Very well done, guys. Thanks a lot. Well, happy Friday to everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. And we've got lots to discuss. As you might expect, we're going to go to Washington, D.C. A couple of times over the course of today's activities because the heat continues to be turned up on the Biden administration generally, Joe Biden in particular, and the Biden crime syndicate. As Brian Wilson's been telling you about on the drive, as I've been telling you about from noon until 3, the mainstream media cannot continue to ignore this story forever. It's simply that the evidence is too great, the story is too hot. And over again, we're seeing repeated people come out of the woodwork. We're seeing evidence and documents come out of the woodwork confirming the accusations that have been levied against the Biden family for the last several years. Simply put, that the Biden family used his position as vice president of the United States to make tremendous amounts of money for the Biden family. This is a corrupt family using their political positions of power in an arrangement in order to make money. Then Vice President Joe Biden is accused, along with his son, Hunter Biden, of allegedly, quote, coercing Burisma co-founder and CEO. And I pardon me, I know Brian's so good at this. I mangle these names. So I will effort to go through it, but I'll mangle it. It's Mykola, and I think I have that one correct, and Zoachevsky into paying them millions of dollars. The CEO of Burisma. We're just going to go with that from now on. The CEO of Burisma was coerced into paying the Biden family millions of dollars each in exchange for pressuring the Ukrainian government to fire prosecutor Viktor Shokin, who was investigating the company. We've been playing the clip, and I can pull it up for you now. We've been playing this clip for years of Joe Biden openly and outwardly bragging about forcing the Ukrainian government to fire a prosecutor, otherwise they wouldn't get. You've seen the clip. You've heard the clip. Oh, yeah, I told him, I'm not going out there. I'm getting on a plane going back. You're not getting the money. You're not getting the $1 billion in loan guarantees. What? You don't have that authority, and that's the president's call. Well, call him. Joe said, all cocky. Call him. And you know what he did? That SOB, he fired that guy. Well, what he didn't tell you is the real reason he wanted to get that guy fired, and that was that guy happened to be investigating Burisma and would have cost Burisma a lot of money or potential criminal proceedings had he not been fired. And he was, because Joe Biden made the Ukrainian government do it. Little did we know that if you believe the accusations being leveled against Joe Biden and his son Hunter along with some other Biden business associates, they made millions and millions of dollars due to that deal. Millions of dollars. The CEO of Burisma, the co-founder and CEO of Burisma, allegedly told the FBI's confidential human source that during a meeting in August of 2016, it cost him, quote, $5 million to pay one Biden and $5 million for the other. The CEO then allegedly said that it was, quote, too late to change the decision, which was understood to mean that the CEO had already paid the Bidens, presumably to, quote, deal with Shokin. In other words, the Bidens shook this guy down for $10 million in cold hard cash in order to get him to fire the prosecutor, or in order for the Biden family to agree to shake down the Ukrainian government to fire the prosecutor. You follow? It's not that hard of a deal. I mean, it's very similar to the way that the mafia operates in terms of how they do their business dealings. So more and more of this information is coming out. Now, whether or not the mainstream media gives a rip about it remains to be seen. I tend to believe that this is going to become too hot for Democrats to ignore eventually. And when I say Democrats, I say the Democrats and the mainstream media interchangeably because they are interchangeable, as most of you already well know. But this is more of the same. But I don't want you to get lost in it. And this is what I mean by that. For the vast majority of us, for those of you who have been listening to Super Talk 99.7 WTN for some length of time, you've been following Brian Wilson, you've been following Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis, or Matt Murphy, or maybe you click on Fox News occasionally, or Newsmax occasionally, or you follow Tucker Carlson now that he's on Twitter, whatever news source that you might have, or maybe you're looking up, internet sources and reading about these stories. You are the smartest listeners on planet Earth, A. Secondarily, you are far and away more informed about all of this than the vast majority of the United States of America. And I know, because I hear from some of you, I know that we have a tendency to tire of hearing it long before the majority of the United States of America realizes that it's going on. If you, as an easy example, if you listen to Super Talk 99.7 WTN for all day, every day, you're going to hear promos. You're going to hear us talking about events that we're going to be out and about. By the way, our event got moved. The event coming up next Wednesday got moved. More on that later. I just thought about that, and I'm writing it down. You hear about these things with far more regularity than most Americans. I've said it before, and it's true that Super Talk 99.7 WTN is one of the finest talk radio stations and sources of information in the United States of America or the world. And I don't say that because I work for this company. I'm blessed to work for this company, and I'm blessed to work for this radio station. I say it because it's true. But because you're watching or listening to one of the finest sources of information, you are more well-informed. And at our best, we're reaching 20% of the audience. What we have to do is continue to press on this story. If you believe in this story, if you believe that the corruption needs to be held to account, if you are sick to death of the Democrats getting away with it, constantly getting away with it, whether it is the Obama family or Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton, and I could go on and on and on and on, the number of Democrats that seem to get away with it, quote unquote, whilst the Republicans get hung up on the littlest of things. If this tires you and you're ready for change, then you have to put up with hearing about this story for some time down the road, because we have to cut through the clutter and make sure that the American people understand truly what's going on. That the Biden family used Joe Biden's position as vice president to enrich themselves on the backs of the American taxpayer. And that's wrong, and it needs to be exposed. And Joe Biden, if the Congress of the United States of America is doing its job, at this stage, Joe Biden can face nothing other than impeachment charges. And I know that, the vast majority of the American, well, I won't say vast majority of the American people, some in the American public would suggest that, they went down the impeachment road so many times. Why would we do that, Matt? Especially considering that Kamala Harris might even be worse than a bumbling, fumbling, elderly, aged Joe Biden. It's because we have to believe in the rule of law. We have to follow the rules as set forth by the Constitution of the United States And if we do not follow the basic rules of law and order in the United States of America to include Joe Biden, then what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Plus, we need to try to send a message to the Democrats that the gig is up, or the jig. I've heard it both ways. One way or the other, would love to hear from you on the matter. 615-737-9986. 615-737-9986. I also want to personally challenge those of you who are Cracker Jack shots to come on out and beat Matt Murphy. I spent some time laying down some lead earlier in the week on my own time. Was not on company time. And I set down a time. Now, I have some of the best trainers in the business helping me out at the GlockStore, and they did just that. And so I set down a time of 9.5 seconds. But I think that most of you who fashion yourselves as pistol aficionados could beat me in this regard. And so with that in mind, come on out and do it. I'd love to see you. 615-737-9986 is our telephone number. That's also the super text line. We'll take a short time out, and when we come back, we'll talk to Lenny McGill himself. He's going to step up to the microphone for just a moment. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
President Biden meeting with the biggest tech companies discussing the safety of artificial intelligence. The new Titan Stadium headed in the right direction. Another good step there. More information on a North Dakota shooting that left an officer dead. Those stories and more coming up at 3:30. I'm Mac Morey here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
104.5 the zone down at the Shoney's and Donald's.
Yes, thank you much, Mac Morey, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy and you on this Friday. Brian Wilson out. I'm in on the drive. Thank you for being here. Originally, during this Friday, I was going to be at GlockStore during noon to 3. We shifted over to 3 to 7 as I shifted into the afternoon time slot, and so I'm pleased to be at McGill's world-famous GlockStore. You heard me talking about it. Now come see it, and come see me, shake my hand. I'd love to see you. I'm nothing to look at, but we got babies. We got baby. Tanya's got a baby here. You can kiss a baby. I bet you if you bought a brand new Glock, Lenny might let you kiss him on the cheek. I don't know. Lenny McGill joins us from McGill's GlockStore. What's up, Lenny?
We're shaking hands and kissing babies.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. It's nice to have you here.
It is a pleasure to be here.
Really enjoy your show. Really
well,
do.
thank you, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And I love the fact we've talked about it in the past. You've stopped by a couple of times. But I love, for the new listeners that come in, I love telling them the story about how you got to Tennessee. Because you are truly a California refugee, my friend.
Well, we escaped the communist state of California because it was just getting crazy. I mean, absolutely, taxes were getting crazy. The homeless situation was getting crazy, just nutty. And we got here, and we're super happy here.
Oh man, how long have you been here?
We bought the house in 2018, opened this business in 2019. So it's been almost 3 years now, 3.5.
And it is a truly full service shop. You've got the retail side, you've got the training side with the Shoot 270, but also you've got the manufacturing division, and you ship worldwide from right here in Nashville.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that we actually do manufacture gun parts. For Glocks, we're Glock specialists, and so we manufacture performance parts, and we've got a full machine shop here. We do optics for people. That's one of the big things we're doing now is milling slides and installing optics. So if you've got a Glock and you want to customize it or make it more performance oriented, come on in.
We had a Super Talk 99.7 listener that stopped by. She had to get to another event, but she came by to specifically say that she was desperately wanting that baby blue Glock 43 that you've got up there, the customized baby blue Glock 40. And I didn't even know what she was talking about. I said, what do you mean baby blue Glock? She said, and Dan Hughes was here, and he goes, no, we made that. We
It's
customized
either a robin's egg blue.
Robin's egg blue.
Or
there you go.
Tiffany blue, which we can't really say. But robin's egg blue is good, and they're very attractive. And that's the neat thing is, the Glock is a nice platform on which you can do a lot of custom stuff with, and we do it all here. And that's the neat thing is we've got a gunsmith here. We've got certainly the machine shop we said, but we got some very creative people to help build guns.
Well, and I want to tell you a story as a testimony to the people that you've hired to be representatives of the GlockStore, and it's about me, right? So I'm in one of the Shoot 270 ranges. I'm with Dan Hughes, and we're kind of starting to go through the paces, and I'm all over the joint with my shooting. And Dan's, I could tell Dan didn't know how to approach it. He goes, "Can I shoot your gun for a second?" And he did. Immediately took it back to the gunsmiths. Sights were completely off.
Oh, how about that?
We come back, and now I'm in my triangles downrange. I'm doing well downrange. So it was just that quick. He was able to identify there's something else going on here, need to go a different route.
You weren't that bad.
I wasn't right. I wasn't that bad. But the cool thing is you've got gunsmiths right on site.
Yeah.
They can go ahead and take care of that.
Yeah.
Make it right and get you back on.
And we're really about safety and training. This is a tool. A gun's a tool, just like anything else. You really have to learn to be safe. You have to learn how to operate. And then, shooting is secondary. You want to be safe first and foremost. So you need to learn how to operate the machine, the tool, and then the shooting part, comes, after that. But that's really the key factor is we have these one-on-one rooms. They're different than lanes. They're really kind of like a Pilates studio versus a family fitness center. And you get to go in there one-on-one with an instructor, and you get so much more out of 1 hour than you would in a 4 or 5 hour group session.
I wanted to ask you, what was the inspiration behind that? Was it just life experience in gun ranges?
Absolutely.
Going down lanes and recognizing that didn't really replicate real life?
Yeah, a couple things. One day I was at a range and in San Diego, and there were a bunch of young Marines there, and I was shooting, testing some parts and pieces, and really just one target, and these guys were a little buzzed of some sort and having a bunch of fun and laughing and joking, and the gun muzzle was every which way but
You
loose.
can kind of see that not a
And
lot,
I
of,
thought,
not a
you know,
lot of
this-
discipline going
It's
on.
not really safe, and it's not really, the environment that I want to be on. In fact, that's not the environment I wouldn't want my family to be on either. I really like the private shooting room concept that we have because it is safer. It's really just you and one gun and an instructor.
So, final thoughts on this, Lenny, before I have to get to the bottom of the hour news, and it concerns Tennessee because I'm curious what it is about Tennessee that you think sets Tennessee apart. I mean, you could have chosen to bring your business to any state in the union.
Well, we looked around. Yeah, we did.
And you chose Tennessee.
Absolutely.
But more particularly apart from why you chose Tennessee, what have you found that you love most about Tennessee?
The family and Christian consciousness. Honestly, I mean, really, it's much more family oriented, much more Christian oriented. People aren't afraid to say I'm Christian. In California, that's like a negative. Here, it's a positive. And it's a good thing. I think this country is going the wrong way if they get away from God and get away from family. That's what it's all about.
I love it, man. I love it. Thank you for inviting us into your home. Thank you for building this facility for the people of Nashville. We appreciate you.
Thank you for everything, and thanks for
brother.
your listeners. They're great people.
Absolutely. Come on by and see us. We're at McGill's world-famous GlockStore all afternoon long, 328 on Super Talk. When we return, speaking of California, there was a story out recently about, you might remember this gallery owner out of San Francisco, California, that was arrested for pouring water on a homeless woman. So this homeless woman had set up shop in front of his business, and he asked her repeatedly to move, and she refused to move. And finally, he was exacerbated. He admits that he was exacerbated. He was frustrated. He was at the end of his rope because no customers would come into his store because there was a homeless woman who had set up right in front of his front door. So he took a water hose and put some water on her, and she got upset. Well, the cops arrested him for assault. And now that gallery owner is speaking out, and we'll tell you what that gallery owner has to say. It is amazing that there are any businesses left in the state of California, quite honestly, especially in the bigger cities of Los Angeles, San Francisco, Sacramento, and a few others. We'll be back in just a moment, bottom of the hour news time on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
30 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 90 degrees in Nashville, and back to that sun-fueled heat here to stay this weekend as clear skies are expected. Maybe a few scattered showers and thunderstorms today, but nothing over the weekend. And we got a severe thunderstorm watch until 9 p.m. in Bedford, Coffee, Grundy, Giles, Murray, and Marshall counties. But the northern portions of the mid-state, nothing severe. Traffic weather coming up just a few minutes away. Inside of the White House today, President Biden met with tech executives from Google, Meta, OpenAI, and Microsoft to discuss a new framework on safeguards for artificial intelligence in response to increasing concerns on the development and security risks associated with artificial intelligence. Microsoft's vice chair and President Brad Smith say one of these companies will also focus on keeping this kind of technology out of the hands of, quote, bad actors that seek to do harm through this kind of tech.
There will be days when we face challenges, but I will say this. We as a country are producing the most advanced and secure and the safest technology in the world, and we need to remain at that forefront of technology.
He said that today was a step in the right direction. Stadium news in Nashville. Last night, the Metro Sports Authority approved of the $760 million in bonds to help take care of construction for the new Tennessee Titans Stadium. The bonds will be paid back by $500 million from the state, and then the rest tourist tax money. Under this deal, Tennessee State University will get to hold their home games at the stadium rent-free, and if they choose to not use that new stadium, the school gets paid $150,000. And in North Dakota, authorities are releasing more information about last week's shooting that left a police officer dead and 2 officers and a civilian injured. Brian Clark.
Last week's attack on police officers in Fargo was a true ambush.
None of the officers even had so much as an opportunity to turn, to crouch, to grab for their service weapon. Nothing.
North Dakota Attorney General Drew Wrigley said the gunman, Mohammed Barakat, had searched for ways to inflict maximum damage.
Explosive ammo, kill fast, incendiary rounds, mass shooting events. How to, I guess.
Barakat was shot and killed by other officers.
And that is the latest news. Weather and traffic on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
WTN 337. Good afternoon. Happy Friday, friends. Hope the drive's going, well, as good as could be expected so far. At least it's not raining for many of us. Most of us, cross our fingers. No more of that nonsense that we had over the last couple of days. I was out and about earlier this morning, and I had a guy describing on a golf course what his world was like in Mount Juliet yesterday when that storm system moved through, and he said it wasn't a tornado, but I would have bet you money at the time that we were going through it that it was a tornado. But one way or the other, some nasty, nasty weather coming through yesterday, and hopefully we won't have a repeat of the same this afternoon. We'll keep you up to date from the newsroom, from the Weather Center, and all points in between on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We're safe and sound inside of the GlockStore on Airlane Drive, just off of Elm Hill Pike, and it's a section of Elm Hill Pike that's just right off of Briley Parkway, off of 155. So if you type in GlockStore in your GPS, you cannot miss us. And if you get here before 4 o'clock, you will maybe get to meet our next guest. Dan Hughes is joining us. He is our training guru. What is your official title with GlockStore?
My official title is the Range and Training Director.
That's pretty official.
It is official.
How many
It's code for I set up targets and I pick up brass.
That's right. You roll around the acorn picker upper.
That's exactly right.
Can we talk about the acorn picker upper?
I would love to talk about that.
They're shooting rooms here at the GlockStore. They're not shooting ranges, and a lot of lead goes down range, and a lot of brass goes on the floor. And you got to pick it up with something. What do you use to pick up the brass?
Yeah, so we figured out that using acorn picker uppers is a great way to pick up brass, and it's much easier on your back, hands, etc. Just rolling that thing around. It's like a glorified vacuum cleaner.
Well, I first saw it, and I said to Dan, "Man, they designed a thing specifically for shell casings." He was like, "No, this is an acorn picker upper. We just figured that it works for this too," and it's pretty cool. That's nice.
I would love to say that it's my idea, but it was not.
You'd probably make a lot of money if it was your idea.
Man, wouldn't we?
So how many trainers do you currently have?
So right now I have 6 trainers working with me.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I love the fact that at GlockStore it's kind of I don't even know if it's an equal distribution, but obviously you're selling, right? You and I talked about this the other day when we were training, that if you truly want to utilize your First or your Second Amendment rights, owning a firearm is one component of it, but if you don't know how to use it, if you don't know what to do and when to do it, then owning a firearm is virtually useless to you, and that's where the training comes in.
Absolutely. I tell people this all the time, that if you're going to own a firearm with the intent of using it to protect yourself or your loved ones or your property, you have a moral responsibility to understand how to utilize that gun.
Right.
And yeah, like you mentioned, we don't have shoot lanes. So what we have is we have shoot rooms. You are afforded the opportunity to shoot 270 degrees. So you have a 270 degree range of fire. We do things that you can't do in other ranges. We allow you to, you can shoot from the draw. You can shoot rapid fire. You can engage multiple targets in both width and in depth.
That's what the Matt Murphy Challenge is all about, by the way, too.
Absolutely.
Which I love.
Yeah, absolutely. It's realistic. It's realistic and it's relevant training.
How long have you been doing it? I mean, just tell me a little bit about your history.
Well, so I'm recently retired from the military. I spent 22 years in the military in total, 3 years as a young paratrooper, and then I spent 19 years in special operations.
Somebody told me, and I'm not going to say who, but Dan, somebody told me that you are a designated BA. You know what BA stands for, I'm sure. That's what I was told. That you're, and I don't know if it's true or not. And you know what? But it is a typical signature of a real BA that they'll never tell you that they're a real BA.
All right, then
so I don't expect the truth. I don't expect the truth out of you. But that's what I was told.
Well, here's the truth.
Special ops were the words that were used.
If you were to peel back my skull and look into my head, you'd see 3 midgets riding around on tricycles juggling red balls. But I do have a background. I spent almost 20 years in special operations. The majority of my time as a Green Beret. Got multiple combat deployments, and this is after leaving the military, getting a job here at the GlockStore sort of is the perfect thing for me. It was a perfect way to transition from a life of training other people on how to shoot, move, and communicate, and I get to do the same thing here. It's a little bit different, but I'm passionate about training. I'm passionate about teaching people how to use firearms, and there's no better place to do it than here at the GlockStore.
I mean, so I would think that one of your trainers, their first job is to kind of figure out the person that they're talking to. Just sit down and say, okay, talk to me about your background, talk to me about your experience with guns, talk to me about what you're looking to accomplish. You really have to get to know the person before you can figure out where to begin the training.
Absolutely. One, we have to know what their level of training is, because we have to be safe, right? And so if we're working with somebody that has, a limited understanding of firearms and firearm safety, and you put them into a tactical scenario that they're not ready for,
Yeah, you're asking a baby to ride a motorcycle at that point.
Exactly. They're just not ready. But no, yeah, you're right. Anytime that we have somebody come in, one, we want to understand what their skill set is, but also we want to understand, like, what's their goal for the session? There's a difference between somebody that has never fired a pistol and somebody that has never fired a pistol but has trauma associated with a firearm from something in their past. That's something that's important for us to understand, because the bottom line is we want this to be a fun, a memorable experience, and we do want you to walk out of the store a better shooter than when you walked in.
What do you recommend? And I know it may differ depending on what the goals of the individual are, because some people want to become really proficient. Some people just want to make sure that they gain the skills necessary to use their gun when they need it, and then they don't allow those skills to perish. So what do you recommend for the person like that just wants to make sure that they knock the rust off on occasion, make sure that they can put some lead down? I mean, is it once a month? Is it once every couple of months? What are we talking about?
Yeah, so, I mean, the bottom line is shooting is a perishable skill. And, part of it, part of the question you got to ask is, like, probability. What's the probability? Where do I live? What's the probability that, something bad might happen? I may be able to use this.
Yeah, sure.
But then you want to make sure that you are training consistently. And along with consistent training, it has to be realistic and it has to be relevant training. It's one thing to go into a shooting range, to set up on the lane, and you're in a static position and you're just squeezing rounds in a target that's not moving in front of you. That doesn't replicate the stress that would happen in a combat situation,
in a real
environment,
defensive
situation. Yeah. And I think there's a misconception that people are going to rise to the occasion, when the truth is you're going to sink to the lowest level of your training.
Right.
So whether it's once a month, once a quarter, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, do what your budget, can afford, what you are able to time-wise. But the bottom line is we want to make sure that people are training.
So different kinds of experiences. I mean, because I would expect that you try to talking about replicating those real world experiences. I imagine you're able to, in that room, have just different world type experiences.
Absolutely. So, things that we do typically, if somebody comes in, they have a level of proficiency, and they're, wanting to go into more defensive style shooting, we're going to put barricades in the room, and we're going to teach them how to sort of engage targets without really exposing themselves or overexposing themselves to a threat.
Like you create walls and things like that.
We have walls that are in the room.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing that we do is, most burglaries, robberies, crimes, things of that nature happen at night. So one of the things that we do is we are able to turn off the lights in the range, and you can shoot with a weapons-mounted light. And that's really, truly, probably the most relevant training that you can do.
That sounds simultaneously very fun and scary for someone who's never done it. You know what I mean?
So I will say this: after training a lot of people and introducing them to shooting under low light, in a no light or a low light situation, I think that initially they're intimidated, but when they walk out, they are excited to come back and to do it again.
So, we had the Murphy Challenge.
Yeah.
And Dan Hughes trained me, and he's incredible at what he does. I can tell why you're training the trainers, because you're so good at what you do, and I want to thank you. And I laid down my time, a time that is apparently so impressive that none of you sharpshooters will come by and try to match it. But I challenge you to do so before the day is up. And you don't know this, but I know that Dan Mandis of Nashville's Morning News stopped by, and I told him, I said, my time's 9.5 seconds, Mandis, and I want you to see if you can beat it. And later on, I texted him, and I said, how'd you do? He said, well, I don't think we went through the same course. I said, Mandis, how did you do? He said, I'm going to kick your butt in pickleball. And I said, well, that's all I need to know, Mandis. Thank you very much. That's all I need to know. He's doing good, though. He had never owned a gun before he came to GlockStore.
So in Dan's defense, I've been working with him as well. And one of the things that we've really been focusing on is the no light, low light shooting.
Love it. I've never done that. So he's ahead of me in that game. So
he's doing. You both did a fantastic job. You really, really did. Honestly, the fact that what did we start? Your first run was 30
seconds.
30 seconds.
We got down to 9.5.
Yeah. Well,
and I feel great about it.
You got down to 9.
Well, I mean, no, I know it's a we thing because without you, I don't know what I'm doing in there. Well, listen, thank you for everything. Thank you guys at the GlockStore. Congratulations. That's all I'll say. I won't say any more in case somebody might be listening, but congratulations.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking
Thank you.
about when I say that? And I should probably just get away from the subject altogether. There's Dan Hughes. He is the training specialist, training guru, we'll call him, at the GlockStore. Thank you, man.
Hey, Matt, thank you, buddy.
And absolutely no problem. All right, it's 3:48. I mentioned this story out of San Francisco, and I want to pay this off. San Francisco Art Gallery. I mean, we talk about all the time how California's just going absolutely to hell, and it is. California's just going nuts. A California Art Gallery owner, it's a story we mentioned when it happened, arrested earlier this year after hosing down a homeless woman outside of his business in a, quote, act of frustration, said that his story was a reminder of how broken the city truly has become. He's written an op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal called "I Lost My Temper, San Francisco Has Lost Its Mind." So this individual, a man by the name of Collier Gwynn, drew national attention in January when someone, a passerby, if you will, everybody's got a video camera on their phones, of course, filmed the then 71-year-old spraying a homeless woman with a water hose because she repeatedly refused to move from the sidewalk in front of his business. He was eventually arrested and accepted a deal to perform 35 hours of community service to have the misdemeanor battery charge dropped from the city's district attorney office. So no one is I don't know that anybody's suggesting that we should resort to water hose vigilantism. I think that's a little extreme. Not even equally. I think it's far more extreme that San Francisco is allowing what I'm told is, I've never been to San Francisco, so I don't know. But I am told by many, many people that I know and trust that it was a once great city that has descended into absolute chaos because of a lack of leadership. 40-year resident of San Francisco said the video clip did not show the frustration and helplessness that all San Francisco business owners feel in their community where drug abuse and shoplifting. He said that drug use and shoplifting is no longer a crime. Quote, "In my city, shoplifting, drug dealing, and drug abuse are no longer treated as crimes, but my act of frustration earned me 35 hours of community service." This is another reminder of how broken San Francisco has become and how inhospitable the current laws are to small business owners and to taxpayers. Now, I bring this up for a larger reason that I want to talk about it on the other side, and that is this, that if you continue to see lawmakers and, sadly, police departments who are hamstrung by lawmakers unable to do anything about the crime problems in their city, increasingly individuals are going to turn inwardly to themselves to do something about it. They're going to turn to, sadly, vigilantism, whether it's water hose vigilantism or any other kind. And when that happens, folks, when you've got that level of taking it into our own hands on the streets, that's chaos. And that's a dangerous scenario. Look at Daniel Penny in New York City in the subway system. That is a result of the police not being able to do their jobs. I don't blame the individual police officers. I certainly do blame the leftist mindset behind the lawmakers. It's 3:52 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity. like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
4 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. The southern portion of Middle Tennessee right now with some sporadic thunderstorm watches until 9 p.m. And taking a look specifically there, you're talking Giles, Murray, Marshall, Bedford, Coffee, and Grundy counties. But the rest of Middle Tennessee, the northern portion's clear and should only see a scattered shower or two, if that. Clear and sunny weekend ahead. Right now, 90 degrees. Complete weather and traffic in 5 minutes. Right now in Tennessee, Channel 4 says a road incident is being investigated off of I-84 on the eastbound I-840 on the eastbound ramp of Horton Highway, and that ramp is now open as officials are still looking into this situation. Officials say that the driver of a white Ford F-250 allegedly fired 4 shots at a victim's car, hitting the taillight of that vehicle. It's unknown currently if there are any injuries. In the nation's capital, President Joe Biden today meeting with tech leaders from 7 major AI companies, all of whom have agreed to allow external security testing of their technology. Those companies include Amazon, Anthropic, Google, Inflection, Meta, Microsoft, and OpenAI. Mary Alice Parks tells us the proof of the company's compliance will be in the execution.
The White House has been very clear that this is just a first step. These are only voluntary commitments from these companies, these 7 companies. We talked to White House staff over the last 24 hours who agreed that there's going to be a much harder debate, a much harder process now in holding these companies accountable for what they just agreed to.
And the Department of Transportation, they say they're investigating why passengers on a Delta flight Monday were forced to endure extreme heat on board as the plane sat on the tarmac. At least one person was taken to the hospital. Jay O'Brien has more.
The Atlanta-bound plane sat on the tarmac for hours waiting to take off Monday in Las Vegas, where temperatures reached triple digits. Multiple people were treated for heat-related injuries, according to an eyewitness, and at least one was taken to the hospital. The Department of Transportation announced Thursday it's looking into what went wrong. In a statement, Delta apologizing to passengers and saying it's also looking into the incident.
In Tennessee, a pedestrian was hit in Clarksville last night and has now been pronounced dead. 39-year-old Shauna Renee Hudson was hit by one vehicle off of Providence Boulevard near the Red River Bridge. Clarksville police are looking into the crash. And in sports news, yesterday's sale of the NFL's Washington Commanders for a record price means a legend in another sport is now a part owner. Brian Clark explains.
The 20-member group that spent a little more than $6 billion to buy the Washington Commanders is fronted by Josh Harris, but it also includes NBA legend Earvin Magic Johnson.
I don't invest in sports teams for ego. I invest to win.
The 5-time NBA champion was speaking Friday ahead of a celebratory rally. Many longtime fans of the team were happy with the departure of Dan Snyder, who had owned the team since 1999. Johnson said earlier Friday the ownership group would consider another name change after the upcoming season.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Good afternoon, friends. No Brian Wilson today. Matt Murphy in for Brian on The Drive. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Just after 4 o'clock, 4:07 to be precise. So roadways looking pretty clogged with that typical Friday afternoon traffic, but we'll try to get you home in the best fashion possible. We'll get you that drive home, make it a little bit better. What does Brian like to say? Make the drive home better and maybe drive a liberal or two crazy. Also, try to inform you on what's going on in your world, and we've got lots going on out of Washington, D.C. and beyond, and we'll get into some of those subject matters to include Joe Biden, Hunter Biden. We touched on these presidential politics and the Biden crime syndicate in the 3 o'clock hour. We'll continue that. We're live at the GlockStore. You're welcome to stop by and come and say hello to us. That's on Airlane Drive, just off of Elm Hill Pike. The Matt Murphy Challenge is up and running, and I have an opportunity for some of you. I've decided something, because to participate in the Matt Murphy Challenge, to cover the cost of the ammo, really more than anything, we've got there's a $20 charge, but you could win a nice GlockStore hat, which more than covers the $20. But here's the great thing. You come, the next two people that come and take care and say you want to participate in the Matt Murphy Challenge, I'm going to cover your $20. I got two $20 bills in my pocket. I'm going to cover the $20 for the next two people that stop by and say that they want to participate in the Matt Murphy Challenge. How about that? That's just the type of guy that I am. 615-737-9986 is our telephone number if you want to participate via the super text line right now, and I encourage you to do that. Because if you have any legal questions, it's a great time to ask them. I do this every Friday on my show when I'm on from noon until 3, and I kind of slide it on over into the drive when I sub in for Brian Wilson. It is Jay St. Clair and Fry Jay. Now, Jay is a Tennessee native. He is the finest legal mind that I've ever met, and he joins us weekly to offer you free legal advice, which Jay likes to say is worth every penny you pay for it. Jay St. Clair, good afternoon, my friend. How are you?
Hey, Matt, if I was any better, I would be my Secretary of Homeland Security, who's sitting right here beside me.
So, Jay, I have been inspired by a text message that I received this week from an individual that I think you know, because it was you. And I want you to tell the story. And I know this is completely unrelated to the law, although you could probably figure out a way that Lazarus should be able to sue you. But I want you to tell the story of the Possum Lazarus.
About Lazarus. Yeah, no, I texted you. Lazarus came back this week. I told you that, didn't I?
Yeah, well, you did. I mean, well, or at least a cousin or brother or brother's cousin or whatever. We don't know.
I like things, yeah. But yeah, so I'll tell you the original Lazarus story. I get up early Saturday morning. I'm an early riser, and I go out in the front yard, and I'm going to play golf. Well, there's a dead possum in my front yard, man. Sun's not up, but I'm going to go play golf, and I can't leave a dead possum in my front yard.
Right.
I live in a nice neighborhood and whatnot. So I said, well, I got to clean this up. So I go get a shovel and a trash bag, and I poke him real good, right?
I mean, because, they play possum,
yeah,
Jay.
Playing possum. Well, I mean, I've known that since I was a kid.
Right.
And I just want to make sure he wasn't playing possum. Well, Olivia had been outside, my German Shepherd, and she said she's killed possums before. And I poked him real good, and now he's dead. So I put him in the bag, put him in the trash can, go off and play golf, and frankly, forget about it. And come back, and several hours later, and I'm working around in the yard, I go throw something away in the trash can. And it's the big trash can, the one you roll out to the street,
Uh-huh.
And I open up the lid of the trash can, and there's this possum staring at me. Well, he wasn't staring at me, he was grinning at me like a possum. And he was mad because it was hot, and whatnot. And I'm dumbfounded. I'm like, how could a possum crawl in this trash can? Because I'm looking, it's 4 feet tall, and it's got a cover on it. And I'm like, there's no way. How did this possum crawl in this trash can? So I went and thought about it a little bit. And I said, well, I remember putting that dead possum in there. So this must be one of his relatives who came to pay his last respect.
Another possum must have known that the dead possum. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And he came to pay his respects. But I still couldn't understand how that possum crawled in that trash can. And so I went back and opened it up again, and boy, he was mad.
I bet.
And I got to looking around for the trash bag, where I put that other one in there. Man, it was empty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's when I figured out that that's this dead possum that I threw in there earlier. So I named him Lazarus, which seemed fit.
Did it? I mean, look, hindsight is, as they say, 2020.
Right.
At the time, it just didn't occur to you?
Never occurred. But that possum was dead.
Because in your mind, that possum was grave.
He was graveyard dead, man. I poked him real hard with that shovel. And when I picked him up and put him in the bag, he didn't move. He was graveyard dead. And so now I got a problem, right? I've got Lazarus is in here in this trash can, and he's mad. And Olivia's sitting there watching the whole thing. She's like, ooh, did I get to kill him again? And so I said, all right, here's what we're going to do. All right, Lazarus, you get one shot, buddy. And so I said, Elizabeth and I are going to go get some lunch at Publix. We got fried chicken.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to roll this trash can over here. I'm going to tilt it over on one side. I'm going to lower down the lid. You got one chance, buddy. And so, and I had to put Olivia up when I did that because she'd go kill him again. And we went and got lunch, came back, ate lunch, went out there, and Lazarus was gone.
So, in other words, Jay, the warden plugged the prisoner into the electric chair, fired old Yellow Mama up.
Yep.
Gave the prisoner the good stuff, the juice.
10,000 volts. Yeah.
They survived the juice, and so the warden said, "Well, you're free to go, I suppose." You rode the lightning.
I took a deep dive, and because we've all heard playing possum, right? Well, they don't play possum, man. I never knew this. They actually go in a coma. It's Mother Nature's way of protecting them. And so when they get in a dangerous situation, when he saw my Secretary of Homeland Security coming up to him, there's a natural instinct in them to go in a coma because a lot of predators will not eat dead meat, and including my German Shepherd. And so they go in a coma. And she goes up and looks and says, well, he's dead. I'm not going to eat that. And I don't know how long they stay in a coma. I was going for about 4 hours. But they're in a coma to the point where you could break a leg and they wouldn't flinch.
Whoa.
They're absolutely unconscious. They're not playing possum. They have lost consciousness.
Well, apparently they come out of it in less time than it takes to play 18 holes of golf.
That's exactly right. Yep, no, that's right. Because I know that because what happened this week, she went crazy 1:30 in the morning. I knew what it was. I opened the back door because her food bowl's out there. And sure enough, it's a possum. And I left her alone. I went out there 4 or 5 minutes later, and there he is dead, 25 feet from her food bowl. But I fooled me once, shame on you. Fooled me twice, shame on me. I said, no, Olivia, come in. We're going to get some sleep. We'll just see. And so about 3 hours later, 4 o'clock, I woke up, went out there, no possum.
Possum's gone.
Same thing.
Well, good old Lazarus. How about that? I love that story. Love that story. I just love the fact because I guarantee I would have done the same thing. I mean, hindsight. I mean, people listening, they think, well, Jay, you open up the thing, you see the possum, well, I guess the possum. But the way you described it, and I never thought of it this way. And you know me, I did a dive after you told me the story too. And it's like, no, it's not that they just are kind of, it's not just us sticking our tongue out and closing our eyes. They appear every bit as dead as you think they are.
Man, he was graveyard dead.
Stiff as a board, I bet.
Oh, yeah.
Just dead. Well, I love the story. Well, you need to tell her. You need to get Olivia needs to get off her butt because apparently she's not doing her job. There's possums wandering around. Now, come on.
Yeah, well,
she's
got it. The other night.
She's got it cushy. I mean, she's strutting around your place like Kamala Harris in Washington D.C. Jay, nothing to do, just stumbling, bumbling, laughing, having a good time. Jay, I'm inspired. I know that you, and I might get certain details of this wrong, but in addition to your the law that you practice in Birmingham, Alabama, you also teach a little law at Cumberland School of Law. Do you not?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been doing that for about 20 years, man.
I want to talk to you about an aspect of your the educational opportunity that you provide your students, because I was inspired to bring this up from the Jason Aldean story, and I don't know if you know anything about it. But the upshot is this: that Jason Aldean, country music superstar, comes out with a music video that some people don't like. And those people that don't like this country music video and the country music song, obviously, that's being sung during the video, they've decided that they want to try to get this thing shut down off of radio stations and off of country music television, and country music television did it. So what I would love to do is, because I don't want to have to interrupt you, but I'd love, but I've heard this in the past, but I think it's so well spoken regarding your thoughts on free speech. Can we do that when we come back?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
All right, so Jay St. Clair will talk about the First Amendment and free speech and what it means for all of us in the United States of America. When we return, it is Super Talk 99.7 WTN, a quick timeout, 19 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock on The Drive.
AI meetings in the White House to improve safety and regulation. A Tennessee County Commissioner in trouble with the law. And today's money news. Those stories and more coming up at 4:30. I'm Mac Maury here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
And WTN, it's 422. Happy Friday. Hope you're doing well. Thank you to all of our weekend warriors. I try to thank them every single week. Those of you that make our Fridays possible and worthwhile, the couple of days that we might have off on a Saturday and a Sunday, I see you out there, you first responders, police officers, firefighters, doctors, EMTs, nurses, and the like, and all of you restaurateurs and others that give us something to do on the weekends. We certainly thank all of you. 615-737-9986. Get your legal questions in, because in a couple of minutes, Jay St. Clair is going to answer some of those legal questions. And I've got one about a motorcycle and a shotgun, Jay, that you don't want to miss. Motorcycle and a shotgun, and the legality of carrying one on the other. That's coming up in just a couple of minutes. So, Jay, you just have such a perspective on this subject regarding the First Amendment, how it applies to each of us in the United States of America, and what it means for the concept of free speech in America. And I relate it to this story about Jason Aldean, who obviously sang a song and did a video that a lot of people like and a lot of people don't like. And we see this a lot in modern society, that when people don't like things that someone else is saying, it's not enough that they walk away from it. They seem to feel like they have the ability to somehow shut it down. And I know that you talk to young law students about this type of thing all the time.
No, that's right. And I teach labor law, but the constitutional law intersects with that actually quite a bit, Matt. So we have to talk about constitutional law. I was blessed to have taken constitutional law from Charles Black. I think we talked about him one time. Just a brilliant lawyer and teacher. And let me shut the door here. The secretary's got me fired up. Mm-hmm. And he was on the brief in Brown versus Board of Education, just a brilliant guy. And here's what I'll do. Here's the way I introduce the subject by students. I'll just ask them, can Walmart violate the First Amendment? Let's say you want to go into Walmart and you're wearing a particular shirt, and Walmart says you cannot wear that shirt in the store. Is that a violation of the First Amendment? And these are second and third year law students, Matt, that I'm talking to. Mm-hmm. And every year, the majority answer is yes. That violates the First Amendment of the Constitution.
Wow.
Yep. And so it's a very common misconception, and the answer is no, that does not violate the First Amendment. And here's my other example that I like to use. Back before Georgia became Alabama, I would accept your invitation to come to your house and watch the Georgia-Tennessee game. But you had one proviso. You said, Jay, you're welcome to come over. You can bring your drink of choice. It'll be great. But if you start singing Rocky Top, as soon as you get out good up,
you're out.
Sleep.
You're out.
You're out. You're not allowed to sing Rocky Top in my house. And I said, Matt, that violates my First Amendment rights. That's speech. And you said, Jay, I am not the government. The First Amendment applies only to the government. And of course, in this case down in Louisiana, where the government was actually encouraging or coercing social media to censor, that's where it gets a little blurry, where if a private actor is acting on behalf of the government, then that's probably a violation of the First Amendment.
Well, you're so smart, because I introduced it with Jason Aldean, and that's how I wanted to take it, right? Is because nowadays there seems to be, a lot of gray areas about where the government's getting involved and where the government's not getting involved in terms of what private companies are saying about what we can and cannot say.
Right. No, that's right. And of course, his opinion, I think we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. He outlines all the evidence, and it was very clear that the government was very involved with all these social media platforms, encouraging them to censor people, and perhaps, and the judge found, it's likely they were coercing them. And that crosses the line that it's a violation not by the social media companies, but by the government. And so here, for example, if the FBI or the Department of Justice or the President's office called CMT and said, look, y'all need to take this video down. And if you don't, I think we're going to have to take a real strong look at your license. I think it'd be time to investigate y'all. But if you will take this video down, we're not going to do that investigation. Well, that's a violation of the First Amendment by the government, Matt, not by CMT. If CMT makes that decision entirely on their own, that's their right. It's it's the marketplace of ideas. Now, it's bad. I agree with you. This whole idea of cancel culture, I mean, it's awful. The solution to bad speech is more speech.
Amen.
And I'm just, I've said to you many times, the 21st century has not turned out like I thought it would. I thought by this point in the 21st century, we would have even more open, I love to call it the marketplace of ideas. That there would be less censorship. I've always thought it was more than coincidental that Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations in 1776, which is the kind of the first exposition of free economic markets.
That's right.
But in also in 1970 and 1776, they wrote the Declaration of Independence, man. And so there's this free marketplace of commerce and the free marketplace of ideas. And the market, the markets are better the more competition there is. And that's true both in economic markets and intellectual markets.
Oh, so well said.
We ought to let everybody speak, and then the best ideas win.
Well, and sadly, we deal with groups of individuals, and this group think that they have the ability to shut down certain concepts or certain speech just based on their disagreement. It's funny, but you think about it. If everyone agreed on something that I was saying, then we wouldn't need the First Amendment.
Right. Exactly.
We wouldn't need a guarantee that I was allowed to speak if everybody agreed with what I was saying. And
I
so
wish I could tell you who. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's fascinating to me that we have so many people, it seems nowadays, that believe that the majority of individuals within a certain structure believe differently than you, it's really the will of the mob, which was a dangerous concept to our founding fathers.
Well, and it's so different from where we started, Matt, and why we started this country. And that's all R.K. Jr. said recently. I thought it was so brilliant, is that this is not only bad for this country, it's bad for the world. Because we're setting the example for the world of how it should be. And the way our founding fathers looked at this was not a founding father. I can't remember who said this, but you may know. I may disagree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it.
Amen.
That's where this country started, man. That's why we left England. That's why we came over here. And then when the British Crown got so oppressive, that's why we seceded from England. That's what we did. We seceded. And it was all based on freedom. And now we're walking away from it, Matt, and it just breaks my heart.
Well, it does mine too. All right, we've got some questions rolling in. We get to the bottom of the hour news with Mac Morey in the News Center, and when we return on the drive, you may ask any legal question on your mind of Jay St. Clair. Write them in, 615-737-9986, and he'll get to them. It's Matt Murphy in for Brian Wilson on the drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
4:32, I'm Mac Morey with your top story. Severe thunderstorm watch until 9 p.m. in Bedford, Coffee, Grundy, Giles, Murray, and Marshall counties. Here in Nashville and around it, just a scattered shower or two expected. And a clear and sunny weekend ahead. Full forecast, latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Starting in the nation's capital, inside of the White House today, President Biden met with tech executives from Google, Meta, OpenAI, Microsoft, other big tech companies to discuss a new framework on safeguards for artificial intelligence in response to increasing concerns on the development and security risks associated with AI. Microsoft Vice Chair and President Brad Smith says many of these companies will also focus on keeping this kind of technology out of the hands of, quote, bad actors that seek to do harm through this kind of tech.
There will be days when we face challenges, but I will say this. We as a country are producing the most advanced and secure and the safest technology in the world, and we need to remain at that forefront of technology.
Right now in Tennessee, Channel 4 reporting that a Wilson County Commissioner, 54-year-old Kevin Costley, was arrested last night in Mount Juliet for driving under the influence and possession of a weapon while under the influence. Costley is the District 8 Commission in Wilson County. He's also a softball coach and a suspension teacher at Mount Juliet High School. He was released from jail this morning.
The markets sputtered to the close. The Dow closed up 3 points, up 0.1%. The S&P finished the day up just over a point. That was a gain of 0.3%. And the Nasdaq fell 31 points, off 0.5% for the day. Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, and other companies leading the development of artificial intelligence technology have agreed to a set of safeguards brokered by the White House. President Biden thanked the companies for taking an important step toward eliminating the risks that accompany the technology. A UPS strike is looming. The Teamsters, which represents about 340,000 workers at the shipping giant, calling for better pay, especially for part-time workers, and for safety improvements. They're going to be back at the bargaining table next week, but they're sticking to their strike deadline of July 31st.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN, cruising through a Friday afternoon on the drive. My name is Matt Murphy, in for Brian Wilson. Brian back on Monday. Hope you have great weekend plans, and hope you keep dry. We've got some weather coming through, patchy thunderstorms. We do not believe that we will see anything like what we saw yesterday, which was a thunder boomer extraordinaire. But just be on the lookout if you're getting out of work and trying to get home. We'll try to get you home as safe as sound as possible. 615-737-9986 if you'd like to opine or ask a question of our legal expert, Jay St. Clair. He's with us for one more segment, and we've got a number of those coming in on the super text line, and would love to hear yours. Any legal question on your mind, 615-737-9986. And don't forget, we're at the GlockStore today. You're welcome to stop by. We're here till 7 o'clock tonight. McGill's world-famous GlockStore, located on Elm Hill Pike in Nashville. So, Jay, you ready for a few of these questions?
Absolutely.
Hey, Matt, you mind if I start us off real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Mac Morey, I would love it if you start us off. Thank you for that.
No, of course. Yeah, of course. Just to be clear, Jay, when I go to Matt's house, I am supposed to play Rocky Top, right?
Oh, jeez.
Exactly. Endlessly. Play it on.
Wow. Leave it to a bunch of dadgum Vols to ruin a perfectly good song. This song was a perfectly good song before you people got involved. Oh, no, turn it up, Weber. Turn it up. Let's just listen.
Oh, that's not me.
Oh, this is me.
Wait a minute. That's true, Chris. If I thought about that long enough, I realized you would not take part in this. Thank you, Mr. Bulldog.
Woo, woo, woo.
Awful. Yeah. Thanks.
Sorry. I just had to make sure.
Okay, yeah. They're kissing their cousins up there on Rocky Top.
There's a little palate cleanser, man.
Thank you. We're still national champions. We are going for the three-peat. Kirby says, don't be complacent. Yeah. Love that. You see all those votes we got for SEC champion, Mac? Weird.
What have I done?
Look, you brought it up.
I did.
I mean, Chris Weber will tell you, because he's a long-suffering Georgia Bulldog fan, too. Chris, I don't know about you. It's a hard question, but this feels a lot better than that, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And everybody knows what I'm talking about. They'd rather have this than that. Jay, here's the first legal question from Philip. Well, the second, if you count Mac Morey's ridiculous suggestion that I'd allow Rocky Top in my home. Now, if you actually, Mac, now that I think about it, I want to go back to this one more time. Mac, I will allow you to have Rocky Top sung inside of my home.
Okay.
If it's Dolly Parton singing it in person.
Oh, in person. I'll see what I can do.
I will not only allow it, I will sing it with her. I'll wear Tennessee Orange while she does it.
Now we're talking.
As a matter of fact, while I'm just making proclamations, you get Dolly Parton in my presence anywhere on this earth singing Rocky Top in front of me, to me, and I'll root for Tennessee against Georgia this year. How about that?
All right, Jay, we've got work to do.
That's how much I believe in the princess that is Dolly Parton. And that's also how much I believe that you're going to get her in my presence singing Rocky Top. Matt, I'd like to go ride on a motorcycle. And Philip says that he wants to know if it is permissible for him to carry his shotgun in a holster, like a rifle holster, on his motorcycle.
It is, but unloaded, and the ammunition needs to be really not within arm's length. I don't have the exact the exact verbiage that's stashed in front of me right now, but the Tennessee carry is interesting, Matt, and I hadn't, I'm not fully versed on it, but I was looking at it when you told me this was coming up. You don't have to have a permit, but you cannot go around with the intent to be armed. Which is odd. And so what it basically is saying is that you can carry concealed or unconcealed, but it's not to be loaded. So yeah, if you have it in a holster, then that's great. Even better if it's unloaded. You can put some shells maybe if you got saddlebags or something like that. I think that'd be all right.
Well, that was a lot more
I wouldn't be driving down. I wouldn't be driving down the interstate with a loaded shotgun anyway.
That's true. That's true enough. But I would suggest, Jay, that Philip should be prepared if he chooses to do this in this way to regularly answer some questions about it. I mean,
absolutely. If a police officer drives by and sees you driving down a road with a shotgun, even if it's holstered on a motorcycle, you're going to probably get pulled over.
Can Jason Aldean sue Sheryl Crow for torturous interference of him? This is somebody being funny, Jay, but it's actually pretty funny.
Yeah. No.
Torturous interference of him conducting his business. She interfered with his business when she tweeted that he was a bad person, Jay.
Yeah. And you know me long enough, you'll totally get this. I listened very carefully to the way these questions are phrased.
Uh-huh.
The question was, can he sue her?
Uh-huh.
Well, the answer is yes.
Of course.
It takes two things to file a lawsuit.
What's that, Jay?
A crayon and $250. A crayon to write out the lawsuit and $250 to file it. Anybody can sue anybody for anything. I think what he's really asking is if he files that lawsuit, will he win? Mm-hmm. And the answer to that question is no, because of the technical things that you have to prove to make out tortious interference. The better claim that he has, frankly, is defamation. Because she's really kind of defamed him by insinuating that that he's a racist.
Right.
I can't remember the exact words that she said, but that was the implication of what she was saying. So that's his better claim, but he's got to prove damages. Frankly, it's almost like the attempted boycott of Chick-fil-A from a couple of years ago. Chick-fil-A had the best week they've ever had in the history of the company.
Yeah, if CMT shutting that video down was a genuine attempt to get people to not watch that video, I would dare say it has failed.
No, it's the Barbara Streisand effect, right? I mean, where she tried to get her picture of her house taken off the internet, and then it exploded. And so this protest against him may be the best thing that's ever happened to his career.
Next, no, you're right. I agree.
Yeah, you can sue her, but I would choose a different claim, and he might win, but he's not going to get any money because he can't prove any damages.
3399 writes in and says, I have a legal question. My neighbor is trying to take part of my property, and he swears up and down, even though I have shown him proof that it is mine, that it is not. What steps do I need to take to get him off my property? Because I'm just reading the question as asked. I do this.
Yep.
I need to get him off my property because he keeps putting stuff on it and moving the fence back to where he feels the property line is. I tried hiring a property surveyor, and he followed him around and moved things that the property surveyor put there. Flags called him nonstop. The guy decided not to do my property survey because he was harassed by this guy. I've called every property surveyor in the place around the area, and no one will call me back. He knows a lot of people in this small town that we stay in and that are well known to the area. What should I do? That is the question.
Well, the answer is get a lawyer. That's just the fact that a lot, I know people hate to pay lawyers. I get it. I hate to pay lawyers, but there's just some things where you got to get a lawyer, and this is one. And you got to do it because if he starts using your property, there's this concept called adverse possession. If he open and notoriously uses that property, then after a certain period of time, by law, he owns it. So you got to get after this, and there's just no way around it. You got to get a lawyer. Lawyer letters prompt action that non-lawyer letters don't. I mean, it's just a fact. And if you're in a small town, you're better off getting a lawyer in that small town. Lots of times in those situations, know who is a lot more important than know how. You got to get a lawyer. That lawyer will get a surveyor to come out, and you get a good survey, and then the lawyer will send a letter to the guy and says, here's the property line. If you don't cease and desist, We're going to sue and sue you.
Well, can't I just cease? Well,
absolutely. But if you cease and you find, if I write a cease and desist letter, man, I can charge twice as much.
It's a common refrain when Jay and I talk that I wonder why we have to cease and desist. Why can't we just desist? Why can't we just cease?
But I mean, the definition of desist is cease. It's a cease and cease letter.
Well, it's proof that lawyers charge by the word. Hey,
right.
Matt, ask what the law says about red light camera tickets. Does a person have to pay for getting one, and what happens if you don't? That's a curious question.
Yes, you have to pay, and you go to jail if you don't.
Boy, that's a great explanation,
That's the short answer.
And quite true. Let's see. Let me.
You can fight it, right? I mean, you have the right to go to court and fight it and say it's not me, or they fudged the picture or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's evidence. The photograph is evidence. And if you don't pay it, they can issue a bench warrant for your arrest. And next time, you ever get pulled over, they'll look to see if you have any outstanding warrants. And if you do, they'll take you to jail.
Oh, yeah. I could tell you a story, Jay, but we're just plumb out of time. 51 after the hour.
Personal experience to that, man.
I would love to have the time to read you the number of super texts that I have received in support of Big Orange, whatever that means. I don't even know what that means, but people just want to say to you, Jay, go Big Orange. I guess that means something to you. That must have something to do with Donald Trump.
That means a lot to me, man.
Well, they're giving you a big go Big Orange, and I am too, my friend. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you, brother.
All right. There's Jay St. Clair. It's 4:51. This is The Drive. Brian off today. Matt Murphy at the GlockStore today. Would love to see you. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, we'll tell you what's going on in Washington, D.C., give you a little bit of the lowdown of the swamp, as Brian likes to call it. It's all happening on The Drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, Call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
5 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Scattered showers around the Nashville area expected tonight. Some thunderstorm watches until later tonight in southern portions of the mid-state. Right now, 90 degrees, complete weather forecast and the latest traffic report upcoming in 5 minutes. Some breaking news. This just in from Channel 4. Got an active investigation at the Germantown Kroger. Shots were fired outside of that Kroger. Still learning more information. We'll keep you updated right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Rising tensions with North Korea escalating. The DPRK now threatening to use nuclear weapons, furious over the arrival of a United States armed ballistic submarine docking in South Korea. Britt Glenette is in South Korea near the border.
North Korea ratcheting up the nuclear threats again following the U.S. nuclear-capable ballistic missile submarine docking in South Korea, saying the American vessel has entered extremely dangerous waters. Sources telling ABC News the sub has now moved on, but North Korea clearly riled up by the act of moving it into the area in the first place. The country's defense minister calling it reckless.
And when it comes to Travis King, the U.S. private who crossed into North Korea unauthorized, the White House still does not know where he is. Right now in the mid-state, Covenant School parents have created 2 new nonprofits in hopes of stopping gun violence. Covenant Families for Brighter Tomorrows and Covenant Families Action Fund. They both aim to improve mental health while also trying to initiate legislation changes when it comes to school safety. They're advocating for laws surrounding storage, strengthening background checks, and order of protection laws to keep guns away from people that are deemed dangerous. The parents will be praying on the steps of the state capitol every day until the August special session from 10:10 to 10:27 a.m. to honor those lives that were lost on the tragic day of that shooting. And the CEI director will be getting more face time with the president. Dave Packer lets us know.
President Biden elevating CIA Director Bill Burns to cabinet member. In a statement, the president praising Burns for giving clear, straightforward analysis that prioritizes the safety and security of the American people, and specifically noting Burns and the CIA's work when it comes to China and Russia. Burns Friday saying the president's announcement recognizes the essential contributions to national security that the Central Intelligence Agency makes every day.
Here in Tennessee, with a crime story in Lebanon, a father, Jesse Wayne Craddock, was found guilty of first-degree murder after falling on his baby and killing the child while he was high on fentanyl. The 4-year-old died of asphyxiation at Vanderbilt Medical Center. Sentencing for Craddock is scheduled for November. And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
It is certainly the drive. No Brian Wilson today. Brian is off. Matt Murphy in for Brian until 7 o'clock this afternoon. We'll try to get you home in the proper fashion, make sure that drive goes as smoothly as humanly possible. I hope it's going well for you so far. Happy weekend to you. I guess it's official on this Friday, July 21. We're at the GlockStore today, and we are proud to be here and hope that you're able to stop by. If you're just getting off work, swing down Elm Hill Pike, stop by McGill's world-famous GlockStore and come see us. We're kind of in the retail shop area. If you go to the back of the retail shop toward the shooting range, you will see us on our big desk right next to the drink. And I'll tell you what, the next couple of people that come by, I'll buy you a soda. How about that? We are joined, I'll tell you what, we're going to get into some of the headlines of the day. Lee Greenwood has spoken out on the Jason Aldean controversy, and I love what Lee has to say about it. I've got a story coming out of New York City involving the officials in New York City, specifically Mayor Eric Adams, distributing Spanish flyers on the southern border, warning asylum seekers that there's no more room in New York City, which I just think that is the most delicious thing I can possibly relate to you today, that they're now saying we don't have any more room. The sanctuary cities suddenly have no more room when people actually start using them as sanctuary, quote unquote. I'm using air quotes, sanctuary cities. So that's on the way. An update on the latest on the Biden crime syndicate family and all of the information that's broken out this week. I mean, this story has taken on we've known the story for a long time, but it truly has taken on a next level meaning this week with the whistleblower testimony before Congress and with some of the information that's coming out of Chuck Schumer's office, or not Chuck Schumer's office, pardon me, Chuck Grassley's office. That would be a different Chuck entirely. But right now we wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking with Dan Jones. Dan Jones is not only a guru at the GlockStore, but he's got another little thing that's going on in his life, and I'll tell you about that in just a moment. But first and foremost, thanks for inviting us here, man.
Oh, thank you, Matt. Oh, my gosh. I'm on the air with Matt Murphy. God. I hope I got to get a poster of this or something. My Nashville dreams have come true.
I think this is the first time I've seen you without your hat on. You had to put your headphones on.
I know. I like hats.
It's kind of your signature.
It's
a great look for you. You can get away with it. I've tried to get away with a hat like that for years. Could not do it. You
practice.
Looks great on you.
Practice.
Yeah, just keep going with it.
Yeah.
Eventually, you don't care anymore, right? How long have you been with the GlockStore?
Oh, gosh. Well, I've known Lenny McGill for 33 years or so. We both started off in the video production business in San Diego for many years.
You were a California refugee as well.
That's right. That's right. And I'll get to that. Lenny and I worked, we didn't work together, but we worked in the same industry, and I crewed a lot of his productions and stuff. But about 10 years ago, video business got a little rough. So I said, Lenny, why don't I come work for you? He goes, what are you going to do? I said, well, I don't know. I'll do something. I'll handle the marketing. He goes, okay, that'll work. That was 10 years ago.
And did he get you to Tennessee?
Well,
is that kind of how it works?
I like to say I lived in California for 30 years. The first 20 were great. The last 10, I could not wait to get out. When I found out that we were going to be moving the GlockStore headquarters, I told my wife, okay, we're moving. Now, first we were going to move to Atlanta. Then it was going to be in Dallas. Because Lenny told you that we looked at a lot of different places before he settled on Tennessee. And when he settled on Tennessee, I was so happy. I said, yes, Nashville, Tennessee, I'm going to be the first employee to be there, the first California carpetbagger.
And this establishment that we are sitting in did not exist when all of that was when all of that planning was going down. But it was probably inside of your mind space, right? How this facility would look.
Well, that's all Lenny.
Yeah.
But this was an empty shell.
Right.
And there was a little small admin building next to it. They tore that down. It took 3 years to build this empty shell into the GlockStore. And I don't know if you noticed it, but if you've ever been on our GlockStore YouTube page, we are very popular. We got like 500,000 people.
You have an entire. It's not just. You have a retail side, right, where you're selling a lot of guns, you're selling a lot of apparel, you're selling a lot of accessories. And it's not just the Shoot 270 side. Those are two components. Then you have the manufacturing department.
Correct.
Then you have the shipping department.
Correct.
And you have the television and video production department.
Well, yeah, but we used to do television production for other people, but we just do it for ourselves now, and it just supports our YouTube channel. And when we were building this building, every time we put a video up, we have the Nashville construction update. We would get between 17 and 20,000 views in the first hour.
Because people wanted to know.
Because people wanted to know, and they were saying, oh, thank goodness you're leaving California. We're going to be with you. And I was right there with them. Thank goodness I'm leaving California. We're going to be there. So
I mean, at some point, they're just turning out the lights in California and calling it a state,
gosh,
right? I mean,
yeah.
I
I don't know. I had to go back there a couple of weeks ago or a few weeks ago, right before this whole campaign thing started, to help my son move to Colorado. And I was so surprised at just how it's changed. Homeless people over there are not like the homeless people here are not like the homeless people over there. They are zombies over there now. California takes care of them. They give them money. They aren't panhandling for you anymore. They're just wandering around. They
but
plop
it's sad
over and
because
it's
we know
sad.
it's
so
we
sad.
know what they do with that money.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's why they're zombies.
Yeah, exactly.
And well, I mean, it is a sad.
But anyway, so yes, my wife and I came out here in 2020 in June of 2020. It was still COVID and all that stuff, and we were so happy to get out of California. Oh my gosh! First thing we did was we went to Holy Rosary Church here in Donaldson, and I was talking with the lady because I like to talk to people. And I told her, "Hey, we are here to look for neighborhoods. We're going to go down and look in Franklin, and I'm going to look at Hendersonville, and we're going to go look over here." She goes, "You're in the best neighborhood in all of Nashville. Donaldson is where you want to be." And I'm like, "Well, gosh, I'm only like 2 miles from the store. That would be good." So we decided we were going to live in Donaldson, and we started searching. Came back in October, moved here for good in October 30th of 2020, right before the election. I wanted to see the election because I was so sure Trump was going to win.
We all were.
We were there. I was there to party down.
I'm right there with you.
But anyway, I came here October 30th. We bought a house in Donaldson November 16th.
Now, would you describe yourself as a conservative?
Yes, very much a conservative.
I mean,
but I consider myself a common sense conservative.
And I don't mean to treat. And I know that people that have lived in California for a while, when some of us in the South, I'm a son of the South, from Georgia through Alabama and into Tennessee. I don't mean to look at you like we're touring the zoo and we're looking at you like a creature behind a cage. But I mean, did you talk about politics much while you were in California?
All the time.
Yeah?
Yeah, my mother was the president of the San Diego Republican Women's Group.
All right.
I have been roped into doing video and photography work for campaigns forever. Now, I've never been actually involved in it. I'd show up, I'd do my work, I'd leave. But I always was in a very political frame of mind.
Well, the reason, of course,
my blood pressure dropped 20 points when I moved to Nashville.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Well, you know the reason I'm asking, but let's tell the audience why I'm asking, because you're running for Metro Council.
I am running for Metro Council District 15.
How about that?
Yeah, Dan Jones, the number 4, metrocouncil.com.
Why?
Well, that's a good story. When I came here, I was moving to a red state. It's great. And I knew Nashville was kind of blue, but I didn't realize how blue it was. And I showed up, and it's like, okay, well, so Nashville is the blueberry in the chili bowl. Well, I'm going to get involved here.
That's a good way of putting
so
it.
I contacted the Davidson County Republican Party. I said, hey, what can I do to help? And the first thing they said, we need a place to meet. I said, I think I can handle that. So they meet here at the GlockStore.
Yeah.
And I started attending their meetings and stuff. And then all of a sudden the campaign, it was coming up. We're going to do the city council race. So I volunteered to be the precinct captain and to help with the campaign for the gal that was running here in District 15. And then she had some personal issues come up in early May and couldn't run anymore. So I was at the pre-campaign meeting, and we were saying, like, who's going to run for and represent the DCRP? And I said, well, what the heck, I'll do it. So then that's how I became a candidate.
And what is district? I don't know.
District 15
What
is
is
mainly
District
Donaldson.
15? It's Donaldson. Okay.
It's got some little strips on the sides and stuff, but it's mainly Donaldson.
Is that
The
more of a?
37214.
Is that? And I understand that everything's relative.
Yes.
So nothing in and around Nashville is going to be as conservative as some rural parts of Tennessee. But
Correct.
Is Donaldson a more conservative part of Nashville, or do you have stripes of blue in there as well?
Well, one of the fun things you get to do when you're a campaigner is get to talk to people.
Yeah.
So I went out and I knocked on doors and I talked to people to get my signatures as well as just to say, hey, I'm running and stuff. And literally I'd knock on the door and the husband would answer and the wife would say, oh, who's out there? And so some guy says he's running for city council. Is he one of those liberals? No. Then they come out and meet me and say, hey, that's great. I've only met one in all my going around in Donaldson. I've met one liberal. Now, I'm sure there's more, but there's a guy that walks in front of my house every day. And so I thought, oh, hey, I know him. I've been waving to him. I went up and said, hey, I'm running. He goes, what's your political position? I said, I'm a conservative. He goes, nope, not gonna vote for you.
Okay.
Fair enough. I still wave at him when he walks by my house every day. I mean, It doesn't have to be personal.
Has it been a pleasurable experience? I mean, I shouldn't assume. Is this your first time running for office?
This is the first time I've run for anything. I never even ran for office in high school or anything. I've never run for office.
But it's been a good
before.
experience?
It's been a wonderful experience. I've just enjoyed it tremendously. I don't know that, that it's
here's what you have going for you. You don't have to put an R or a D beside your name.
That's true.
When you run for Metro Council in Nashville. It's a nonpartisan race. And I think a lot of people know you. A lot of people like you. To know you is to like you.
Well, thank you.
And frankly, if you can get a conservative turnout in District 15, I mean, I don't expect that there will be an overwhelming turnout in that individual district because there aren't.
Yeah, it just
sadly,
doesn't happen,
it just doesn't happen. So I feel like if you can get some people going and voting for you, and maybe others who are perhaps voting on the mayor's race or whatnot, more conservative-minded people, thinking conservatively, if you're listening to me and you live in District 15, vote Dan Jones.
Well, this is the election that if you want to put a conservative into the city council, this is the one to do it in. Because, again, the turnout's going to be so low.
Right.
If the Republicans get together and the conservatives get together and get out there and actually vote on the 3rd, I will win it.
What are you looking at as the big-time issues that people are talking to you about as you run?
Well, a lot of people talk about homelessness. That's the big thing. And like I said, it's like I'm over here going, well, it's not really that bad here, but we don't want it to get any worse. But it's homelessness, development. They think that a lot of development is happening too fast without enough infrastructure to go around it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know for sure that that's true. I'd have to go in and look. I know that there is a lot of development going on in Donaldson right now. We're just building the new library. There's some apartments behind the new library that they were saying, I don't know if this is right or whatever. But a lot of people, that's their big concerns. And the roads. The roads are pretty appalling. To be honest.
I mean, when you're putting 300 more people per day, which is the average in Metro Nashville, on the roads, you're naturally going to see a strain in that regard.
Yes, I would think so. But when I first came, my in-laws live down in Arkansas, and the difference is amazing when you cross that bridge.
Right.
The roads are perfect, and you come back. So I think there's some issues there, but they're doing it. I mean, driving down Briley to come to work, used to be like in a video game. I was sweeping around the potholes because there were some really deep ones, and they've repaved.
They're getting
those
it done.
now. Yeah, they're getting it done. So it's good.
And with the homeless, you mentioned homelessness, and with that, in conjunction with that, comes crime.
Mm-hmm.
And I would expect, as you describe yourself as a conservative, you're pro law enforcement, you're pro getting that Metro Nashville Police Department fully staffed.
Very pro law enforcement, very pro getting the police department not only fully staffed, but staffed well. Jeff Eastlick, who's running in a district that's right over here, his big thing is let's hire some, instead of just raw recruits, let's hire some experienced people from these cities that no longer want them. Let's take them from Austin. Let's take them from New Orleans. Let's take them from New York. Los Angeles, please. In fact, the Los Angeles police chief told his people, go find somebody else to work for because they don't appreciate you here.
I don't know if you saw the comments by Chief John Drake when asked about SROs in elementary schools, because in Metro Nashville we have SROs in middle, we have SROs in high schools, and the state has now funded. They don't want money to be an impediment, and they have fully funded SROs in elementary schools. Adrian Battle says, no, we're not going to do that. Chief Drake, whom I've heard great things about, and I'm not, this is not a personal aspersion against Chief Drake, but he comes out and says, we don't feel like we have the time to get the staffing together. Mm-hmm. We can't do it by 2024. He said by June 30th of 2024, so they're not going to take the $5 million to try to staff those elementary schools. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I'm a big fan of Alice Raleigh, and my reaction is hers. What, we're not going to put out a help wanted sign?
Right.
We're not even going to try?
Right.
Just no.
I mean, you're definitely going to fail if you don't try.
Yeah. I mean, then the people got together. People were applauding that when they made that money available. It was like, yes,
right.
Thank goodness our schools can be safe. And now the school district is saying, no, we don't want that. It's like,
Where's your campaign video? I want to see. I know folks want to see this campaign video. Where can we find this campaign video that you've been telling me about?
Okay, well, it's not it's not your normal campaign video. My hobby
I saw it. It's not.
My hobby is singing, and you were talking about how people in San Diego and stuff, the political climate there.
Uh-huh.
When Trump got elected, I was in a band for 8 years. They kicked me out the next day. my name disappeared from the website.
Because you're a Trump guy?
Because I was a Trump guy. I was a vocal Trump guy. But since I've been here, I've met people in Nashville are just so friendly. I've met so many different bands and band members, especially Scott Allen Smith from Pretty Grim. Oh, great guy. They let me get up and sing. So I said, well, I'm going to put together a music video for my campaign video. So that's what I did.
So where can we find this for folks who are interested in it?
If you go to Dan Jones, the number 4, metrocouncil.com, and just scroll down that big old picture of me standing in the snow in front of my yard the first year I was here. You scroll down there and they'll see watch my campaign video, and I sure hope you do watch it.
What else do folks need to know about your candidacy?
I'm going to make a political statement that you will not hear too many politicians make.
Okay.
I have stopped accepting money.
What?
I have closed down my donation site.
You're a politician. You're not taking donations?
Not anymore. One of the things that amazed me is when I started giving presentations and stuff, people were coming up to me and either getting one of my cards and doing it online or just writing me a check. And it's like, wow, this is amazing. I didn't plan on having any regular signs. I bought one sign, a banner on Briley Parkway. I imagine some of your listeners have seen it. You drive right by it. I said, that's going to be my only sign. And then all of a sudden people started giving me money. I have more money than I can spend.
More money than you need.
More money than I need, so I don't want any more. I have shut down the donations, and I did that because I don't want my music video to be bringing in any money. I want people to look at it. If they like what I do, vote for me. Don't give me any money.
A politician saying no money. That's new.
Well, I'm a new politician. Maybe I'll learn my lesson later.
Dan Jones, number 4, metrocouncil.com for more information. Dan, you know how much we love you. We appreciate you at the GlockStore, and I appreciate you throwing your hat in the ring and kind of putting your money where your mouth is, so to speak, with regard to what you believe in and reflecting that on the Metro Council.
One more thing, if you're ever interested in running for office, on my website, I had made a blog of all the steps it takes and all the places you will go talk and all the things you have to do.
Good
so
stuff.
if you're interested in running, that's the beginning of my Campaigning for Dummies book.
There he is, Dan Jones. Dan, thank you so much. We'll be back in just a moment. Got to take a quick time out, 24 after the hour. Matt Murphy in for Brian on The Drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Shots fired outside of the Kroger in Germantown. Crime at a Tennessee church, and New Jersey suing the federal government. Find out why at 5:30. I'll have the stories and more. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Mac Morey. Just a couple of minutes, and we'll listen to some of those news headlines coming up at the bottom of the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy in for Brian Wilson. Brian will be back on Monday. We're here till 7 o'clock, and here is at the GlockStore, and several of you have stopped by. Hello. Aaron Spradlin in the house. He's going to show me how it's done with the Matt Murphy Challenge here in a couple of minutes. We'll see how that turns out. As I've laid 20 on the table for Spradlin's cost of ammunition to get in there and hey, easy. Kirby's stealing my money like Kirby Smart stole Tennessee players. So, I'm sorry. Can I just apologize? Can I take that back? Can I retract the statement? I'd be happy to do so.
Get ready for this year, man.
No, you guys are tip top. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I hate that we're not playing until what, November?
I know.
A long time. Are you going to that game with me?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Come on, I'm ready. I've never seen a game.
Oh my gosh. Yes, Murph, let's go. Please.
And I've heard some wonderful things, and I've heard some not so wonderful things.
That's completely fair.
That's all I'll say. All I'll say about that. New York City has begun distributing English and Spanish flyers at the southern border, warning asylum seekers that there is no room at the inn. I will tell you what New York City Mayor Eric Adams said about the policy earlier in the week in just a couple of minutes after we get to the news headlines of the day with Mac Morey in the newsroom. And come see us at the world-famous GlockStore. It is The Drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 5:30. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories right now. 89 degrees on Music Row and expecting a scattered shower or two. Not necessarily likely, but it could happen around the mid-state, southern portions of Middle Tennessee in a thunderstorm watch until 9 p.m. and a clear, sunny weekend ahead. Complete forecast, latest traffic report upcoming in 5 minutes. Shots fired outside of the Kroger in Germantown. This is off of Monroe Street in the parking lot. Channel 4's Daniel Ledbetter brings us an update and says 2 suspects are being searched for.
Police say surveillance video from the store showed a black SUV pull up. That's when police say a guy in the car got into a dispute with the guy on foot. Both fired shots at each other. One had a pistol, the other had a rifle. The guy on foot ran away from the scene and the SUV drove off.
MNPD spokesperson Don Aaron says they don't believe any shots that were fired made it to inside the store. Crime at a Tennessee church. News 2 reports that St. Andrew Lutheran Church in Franklin has had mail stolen from their mailbox now multiple times. The most recent instance was on Sunday while the sun wasn't even down yet. Camera footage shows what looks like 2 women in an SUV. The church has dealt with mail theft more and more. Ever since the pandemic started, they've now added another lock on their mailbox. Franklin police are offering a reward for information on those 2 women in the video. New Jersey is suing the federal government over New York's plan to toll drivers in Manhattan's Central Business District. Dave Packer.
New Jersey drivers are already tolled when they cross the Hudson River to enter New York City. Now a new plan that would reduce congestion by having drivers pay an additional toll for entering Midtown and Lower Manhattan has Jersey drivers saying enough. The plan that would raise money for mass transit has been in the works for several years and just got a green light from the Federal Highway Administration. New Jersey now suing the FHA, claiming the plan would just shift pollution to other areas while at the same time imposing an unfair cost on commuters from New Jersey.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy in for Brian Wilson. It is The Drive. Thank you for being with us. We're here till 7 o'clock and at the GlockStore until 7 o'clock. Come by and see us if you are available and in and around Elm Hill Pike or Briley Parkway. I noticed that the Tennessee Department of Health, and this story from the Tennessee Star, is announcing that they're working with local leaders to support something called the Red Sand Project between July 25th and July 31st. According to Tennessee Health Commissioner Ralph Alvarado, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, human trafficking is a hidden crime in our state and across the country because victims rarely come forward to receive or help or services. He went on to say it's up to all of us to bring an end to the exploitation of vulnerable individuals. The Red Sand Project reminds us of how crucial it is for communities, both urban and rural, to engage in awareness of education activities and support survivors of human trafficking and strengthen our prevention efforts. Campaign focuses on community members coming together to pour red sand into the cracks of sidewalks, illustrating how survivors of human trafficking often fall through the cracks. Primarily an awareness campaign in that regard. The TBI, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, working on an initiative to inform the public about the signs that someone is a victim of human trafficking. I happen to know a couple of individuals who've been working on this for some time. I call them the two Aarons, lovingly. Aaron Spradlin and Aaron Goldbranson of the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition join us at the GlockStore this afternoon to talk about recent events and everything that they've been doing to try to draw awareness to the scourge of human trafficking. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on with us.
Thank you always.
As always, thank you.
What about, I want to start with good news. This movie, The Sound of Freedom, my goodness gracious, it has taken on a life of its own in the face of what seems to be adversity, right? This story is cutting through every effort on the part of the leftist media cabal to stifle it, to the point that there are individuals reporting. I've seen stories out about we don't have any conclusive evidence, but people feel like movie theaters are trying to sabotage the screening of the films, yet people still go. It's making millions and millions of dollars, and thank God it is. Literally, thank God it is, because it is drawing awareness to a conversation that you two gentlemen have been trying to draw awareness to for some time.
Yeah, it's really awesome that, they tried to push it back. Of course, we talked last week about CNN, and we talked about Rolling Stone, the Washington Post. Now you have the theaters supposedly doing their thing.
Yeah, trying to submarine the film.
Submarine the thing, but just look for a moment at what's happening. All right? Sound of Freedom comes out. It's the number one movie in the country. It'll pretty much be the number one movie in the world, I guarantee. I'm guaranteeing you. Aaron Spradlin said, I guarantee it'll be number one in the world because it needs to be. Number two, you're seeing people get shut down in the music industry that just went number one. The woke are getting smacked in the mouth, and I love that. But back to that topic, the phones haven't stopped as far as people, what do we do, how do we do, what can we do? We really want to be a part of this initiative and going forward and fighting. The movie launched that, and it's skyrocketed, and they're busier than all get out with Operation Underground Railroad. I was in conversation with the new president, Matt Osborne, earlier today, and he's running all over the world right now trying to keep up with how much momentum this is doing. And, of course, Tim Ballard, who the story's about, has been going gangbusters since well before it started in Caviezel. And they're not going to stop. And as every time they stop at a spot to talk about it, 1,000 more people are going to start talking about it. Mm-hmm. Whether it be in Central South America, Europe, or more importantly in our mission here in the United States, people are starting. There's your woke. They're waking up to it, and they're to the point where it's not going to stand. Not in our town. We're not going to do it. It's not going to be happening around us, and it's a big movement.
And that's how the movement grows from a localized movement to a national one to potentially an international one. As you say, not in our backyard, not in our hometown, not in our state, not in our country, and eventually all of that movement spreads.
Yeah, and then once you start educating what to look for, when you start educating what the patterns look like, then people are going to become more aware of that. And because our head has been in the sand so long, as a society, because we never believed it was happening here, or we knew it was happening in other places of the world, but we didn't think, it's not happening here. That's a problem in another country. But now people are seeing how it happens, and there's going to be more coming. of how it happens here. And that movement is just like gaining massive momentum.
For those that missed our conversation last week, and I want to remind folks that we're not talking to a guy who's just talking the talk. You've walked the walk. You've been there on these missions. You've been a part of the Tim Ballard effort to stop this case by case, moment by moment, situation by situation. You did this for, 7 years?
Altogether, yeah. We've been doing so well since 2006, 16, when it started. And Central South America, the Bahamas, we've been all around. And then, of course, we brought it back home. And still 100% behind the efforts of the international movement, because it's a lot easier for them to move internationally because it's kind of accepted, as odd as that sounds in certain cultures.
Right.
And if we're not careful, it's going to become acceptable here. And we need to stand right now and not let that happen.
How you guys have a piece coming out, Aaron Gulbranson, with Daily Wire, and I expect that it will be available generally. I think it's for subscribers. It's there now. Is that right?
Yes, it's by Leif LeMahieu, which I probably butchered his last name. It's on dailywire.com, and it's behind a paywall right now. And it has a lovely name of the piece, and I'll let you read it in a second since you've got the piece. But yeah, my anticipation is it's going to be available for the public for free on either Monday or Tuesday. We'll stay tuned to our social media at TN Faith Freedom, at TN Faith Freedom on Twitter. You'll find it there on Monday or Tuesday. By the way, as an aside, I feel like throwing a little bit of a bomb today.
Come on.
So on July 1st, due to the great work done by the Tennessee General Assembly, State Representative Mary Littleton and Ed Jackson in the state Senate had a bill that went into effect. And it appointed, or it requires the DA's offices around the state to hire or appoint, as well as forced to undergo training, a ADA that is their exclusive reign is child and human trafficking. They're supposed to prosecute child and human traffickers. So I made a phone call today to my good buddy Glenn Funk's office, who fights it out with Mulroy out there in Memphis for being the worst DA in the state.
I'm
if
sure he
not
got
the
right
country.
back to you, right?
No, I got way right back to me. Obviously, nobody's called back, but several people have called, including people in the press, wondering, has it been appointed? Is the job being advertised and that sort of thing? So, since we're here, I'm going to take advantage of your airwaves with your grace. Hey, Glenn Funk, have you hired the person, or have you appointed the person, assigned the person in your office that's dedicated to prosecuting child and human traffickers? We're waiting.
A lot of silence there.
Yeah. It's about
Glenn Funk's busy arresting cops for doing their jobs, I think, right?
Wow.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what
Is that
I'm
not what I understand? How pleased are you, either of the Aarons, that you see more and more attention from government officials, absent Glenn Funk? Put him aside for a minute. I love the fact that we've got officials with the state of Tennessee coming out. And Tennessee started a story on it. I'm looking at a website promoted by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation called ithastostop.com. And right on the front, there's a photo of a young girl that says, "See a person, not a product." I mean, more and more awareness being drawn to this, as much as some in the liberal press want you to believe that this is a fiction and a fantasy that you're just making up, Aaron.
Right.
Despite the fact that you lived it for 7 years of your life.
Right.
They want to suggest that you're just making you and the Ballards of the world, you're just making way more of this than actually exists. Even through that, it is cutting through the clutter.
Absolutely. I think I said something last week when I speak in the state. I'll have somebody that tells me, "Oh, you're making it up." And they're at a conservative meeting. They're telling me that we're making it up. And, of course, my answer is always, "Come on, get in the truck. Let's go. I'll show you where it is. I'll show you how it happens. I'll show you start to finish." And now that this momentum, once again, I said, due to the movie, but way before the movie, we had, our General Assembly, and the help that we've had up there has been astronomical. And like we said in the next session, when we get really rolling, I mean, we've only been around with Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition for 9 months. Yeah. And Gulbranson has been a hammer at the General Assembly.
Let's be honest. This coalition is working as well as it is in spite of Gulbranson. Let's not. I kid because we love.
There is that. And I called you my favorite radio host the last time I was on your show. Dear Lord. No, it is.
I mean, it's such an important issue, and I know that a lot of good members of the General Assembly want to tackle it, want to be a part of the team that's going to stop it in the state of Tennessee and make Tennessee an example to the rest of the United States of America of how it could work.
Absolutely, because we want to replicate it. Because, I mean, with the numbers that we have in the state of Tennessee and in the southeast region, from Miami all the way to Kentucky and all the way to the Mississippi, let's just go there. The impact that this movement here is going to make through the southeastern part of the United States and hopefully replicate into the northeast, northwest, and the southwest.
Well, we're going to freak some people out because I'm going to give a little preview to the Daily Wire piece that I got a chance to look at. And it's a tip that you offer in the Daily Wire piece. And I never thought of this way. You and I and Air Number 2 talked about this a couple of days ago, right? That you mentioned going to, some of our, let's just say, less expensive hotels around Nashville and just drive through a parking lot and look at license plates.
Yep.
And if you see a fancy Mercedes-Benz or whatever brand of car you want to call it, a nice vehicle with a license plate from around here, ask yourself what they're doing in a $49 motel. Now, it might be personal business between consenting adults or whatever, but it might be something different.
Absolutely. And I mentioned this, and I won't mention the county, but we'll say, in the state of Tennessee, you have some affluent counties. And I went through one over on a location in East Nashville one night, and 17 cars in the parking lot of this really, I'd rather sleep outside, rough hotel.
Right.
And there were 9 of them from said county. And it made no sense whatsoever why those vehicles were there. And if those people happen to be fans of your show and they're listening, we kept the plates.
Well, I hope they're not fans.
With all the niceties that means.
Your enemies listen to.
Well, I guess so. Haters are going to hate. Haters are motivators.
This is a fun thing to do. I mean, obviously, we enjoy coming on your show, but we were just taking stock of this before. Right now we're talking about our enemies list, and it's like it's the cartels, it's the MS-13, it's all these other things, and it's it's crazy radical leftist Marxists, and then we look around and we find our friends, and Matt Murphy's one of them. So that's really interesting there, and so I will take value in the value of our enemies and the value of our friends, and the people that criticize us are typically people who should be left out in the cold.
But part of the reason that I think good people that you meet at conservative-minded organizations say, no, you're Aaron, you're exaggerating this. This isn't happening. They don't want to believe it. They want to believe that this is a Guatemalan problem, a Costa Rican problem, a South America issue, something that happens in Southeast Asia. They don't want to believe that it's in Tennessee. And you got to smack them in the face with this reality. This is happening right here, and unless we stand up to it, it will continue to happen right here. You turn on the light and the cockroaches flee.
Right. You draw the line. And the one thing, I say this every time I speak, and I want it to be very well heard. This isn't my statistic. This is the Homeland Security's statistic. 83% of the children trafficked in America are American children. All right? We can blame that failed border wall.
And it's a problem.
It's an enormous problem, and that 83 is probably going to go down a point.
Right.
However, 83% of the children trafficked in this country are from this country. So this is our problem. This is not a global problem. This is our problem. And if you've seen the movie, it tells you right at the end, that last sentence, America is the #1 consumer of this horrible thing.
And it's very important to make that distinction, because you can care about the border as we do very, very, very much. We've said it very, very many times. Joe Biden's open border does result in human trafficking and results in illegal guns, illegal drugs, and that sort of thing, deaths and all that. But if you just focus on that, you're missing the larger issue, and you're able to honestly pretend to yourself that it's not happening here. And it has to be a focus on what's happening here at home. Yes, we can fix the border a number of different ways and with commitment. Trump was on that track very easily. The fight at home is actually much, much harder than fixing the southern border. And it's a little galling when you see politicians just want to talk about the southern border It's an extremely important issue. That's why he went down there about a month or so ago.
But
it's right here at home.
It's confirmation bias that, I mean, when we talk about the southern border in connection with child trafficking and human trafficking, people say, oh, well, then it's coming. It is denying the reality that Aaron just gave us, that 83% of these children are right here from the United States of America. All right, two final thoughts before we have to take a timeout. One, is this getting worse, or are we just becoming more aware of it?
It's getting worse. And they can do that with the monetary gain globally. When we started the fight in 2016, it was a $30 billion industry globally.
Mm-hmm.
It is now a $150 billion industry globally. And if we don't start to stop it, it'll get to a $1 trillion industry.
The next question is, what more can we do to help?
Well, first and foremost, from the Mission America perspective, get involved with your children's lives. Let them know that this exists. Tell your friends and your family that this is out there. Go to any Google, DuckDuckGo, whatever search engine you have. Look for signs of human and child trafficking, and you're going to see list after list, whether it be the FBI, well, the Department of Justice took it all off because it's not an existing thing, so we won't talk about them. But go and look at the Polaris Project. Okay, just Google it. You'll start to see what the signs are, and educate yourself, educate your families. And then when it comes to things like what we're trying to do with the legislature, make noise with your representatives. This is an issue that they can help us stop with penalties, new laws, and an aggressive move.
And I'll say this, and I know we got to take a break, Chris Weber, back at home base, but I'll say this, that next time you see your representative or your senator at a town hall, say, talk to me about child trafficking. What are you guys doing about it? That's all you got to do. Just make them address it and make them aware that you are aware that it's going on in the state of Tennessee. The two Aarons, thank you, gentlemen. You know how much we appreciate the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. We'll be back in just a moment. I know I've got to go. We've got another hour to go on The Drive. No Brian Wilson, Matt Murphy, and for Brian on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, Call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
.601, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 84 degrees, a possibility for a scattered shower or two in the Nashville area and surrounding. Over in the southern portion of the mid-state, Bedford, Cannon, Coffee counties, Grundy County. Thunderstorm watch until 9 p.m. Forecast, latest traffic report upcoming. Got a clear weekend ahead, by the way. Two suspects are being searched for after a shooting at the Kroger in Germantown. MNPD spokesperson Don Aaron breaks down what they believe to have happened.
No rounds were fired inside the store, nor have we determined that any rounds entered the store. From surveillance footage, what we believe to have happened at this point is that around 3:30 this afternoon, a black SUV and a man on foot had some type of confrontation. The passenger inside the SUV appears to have opened fire on the individual on foot with a rifle. The individual on foot is believed to have fired back at the SUV. We have shell casings here at the scene from both a rifle and a pistol.
And now going over to Washington, where they're warning Texas to clear the Rio Grande River of the floating barrier the state installed to stop migrants from crossing. Dave Packer.
In a letter, the Justice Department informing Texas Governor Greg Abbott that it intends to sue the state of Texas over the floating barrier ordered placed there by the governor to stop migrants from crossing into the United States. The letter says the state of Texas actions violate federal law, raise humanitarian concerns, present serious risks to public safety and the environment, and may interfere with the federal government's ability to carry out its official duties. The Justice Department indicating it will go ahead with the lawsuit if it doesn't get a response from Texas by Monday.
And Vice President Kamala Harris visited Florida today, blasting the state's new standards for the teaching of Black history. Jay O'Brien has more.
I do believe this is not only about the state of Florida. There is a national agenda afoot.
In her remarks, the vice president pointing to parts of the new Florida state educational standards that include school instruction on how slaves, quote, developed skills, which could be used for their, quote, personal benefit.
They want to replace history with lies.
Governor Ron DeSantis says the vice president's claims are misleading. State officials have said the, quote, darkest parts of our history are addressed in the curriculum.
Here in Tennessee, drugs at B&A. A Kentucky woman who was flying in from Los Angeles is facing charges after a canine sniffed out 27 pounds of marijuana in her suitcase. The woman, Casey Lee McLean, gave consent for the search. Officials then found 22 vacuum-sealed bags wrapped up in bed sheets. She had no personal bag with her. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
It is The Drive, just after 6 o'clock, 6:09 to be precise. Matt Murphy in for Brian Wilson. We've got another hour. We are slowly winding it down and calling it a weekend by 7 o'clock. We hand off to Mark Levin at that time on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you for making us a part of your evening commute home if you're in your automobiles, or maybe you're still at your places of business, perhaps already at your homes. We thank you for listening to Super Talk 99.7 WTN, and I appreciate Brian giving me the opportunity to slip in here in the afternoon hours and say hello to all of you afternoon and evening commuters and wish you a happy Friday and a happy weekend. 615-737-9986. You can super text us. You can give us a call in the final hour. We remain at the GlockStore over on Elm Hill Pike. Stop by and see us. We've got a couple of guys taking the Matt Murphy Challenge as we speak. Let's see how they do. And we've got a lot of stories to tell you about, particularly if you're just getting in your car. We'll update you on everything that's been going on this afternoon. New York Mayor Eric Adams is explaining his new flyers that he has written in English and Spanish, begging of the asylum seekers coming to New York that there is no more room at the inn. He's saying that there's no guarantee that they will be able to provide shelter and services to new arrivals. The mayor explained his policy earlier in the week, noting simply, we've got no more room in the city. 55,000 migrants are currently under the mayor's care, or the city's care, quote unquote. Add the homeless population, and the total number of people currently seeking shelter in the city of New York has jumped over 100,000. Adams also, 105,000 people. That is, that's an astronomical figure to contemplate. Adams said that policy changes designed to make space for families with children in New York City will require single adult migrants to reapply for housing after every 60 days. In other words, the city of New York, and I actually made a call to a friend of mine that lives in New York City who's up to date with the news. He actually runs or is a part of the operations of one of the local news stations in New York City. And I asked him, I said, what do you make of this policy? And he said, well, right now, sadly, because of the number of homeless people in the city of New York, they have these shelters, and if someone wants to go into the shelter, they are not to be released from the shelter until such time as they wish to be released from their bedding. In other words, once you have a bed, you get to keep it. And now, because of the number of migrants going into the city from the southern border, because of Joe Biden's porous southern border policy, because of his allowance to allow these people to come into the country unabated and unquestioned, now that city has become overrun. And I love seeing it. Folks, this was one of the best strategical political moves in our modern political life, that governors like Governor Greg Abbott, Governor Ron DeSantis, and other authority figures on the southern border decided, you know what? Apparently, sanctuary city that is New York, or the sanctuary area that is Washington, D.C., or hell, even right outside of Vice President Kamala Harris's house would be a good place to put these people, and let's see how they like it. It is so easy to sit in New York and talk about how compassionate you are toward the people at the southern border. We're all compassionate for these folks. That doesn't mean that we have the ability to just ad hoc allow them to come into our country unabated, unfettered, and without question, which is the Biden policy on immigration in the United States. The New York City Flyer concludes by asking migrants to, quote, and this is funny. Now remember, New York City, beacon of promise, the defining principle of New York City has always been at the base of the Statue of Liberty, right? Bring me your poor, your tired, your huddled masses struggling to be free. That's a paraphrase. I know I got it wrong. The defining mission statement of New York was to be a beacon of promise, which was inscribed at the base of the Statue of Liberty. Yet now the flyer that New York is distributing to the southern border says that we please ask you to consider another city when making your decision about where to go in the United States. Anywhere but here, friends. Anywhere but here. Isn't it interesting when the reality of what's going on at the southern border hits one of these cities like New York, and it could be any number of other cities, maybe they've not admitted as much as of yet, but when those realities begin hitting them of what it means, the burden that the illegal aliens coming into the United States of America, the burden that becomes on those cities themselves and on those city services. It's not that we're not compassionate to people from other nations. It is simply this, that when you are the honeypot, when you are the place that everyone wants to be, and believe it or not, with all of our issues and all of our problems, we remain the shining city on a hill. We remain that shining beacon of light, of individual liberty and freedom, of opportunity for those who want it. And so obviously people from other countries want to come here. That doesn't mean that we can just open our doors and allow everyone to come. And it's not because we don't like them. It's because if we allowed that to happen, we would become them. And then you have nothing to look up to or nothing to look forward to if you're a part of the immigration process. Our immigration policy should first, foremost, second, third, and last be a benefit to the United States of America. And then as we can, we should benefit those who would benefit the United States. And there's nothing wrong in saying that. There are some in this country that do not want to deal with the realities of this problem that would suggest to you that what I just said is xenophobic. Sincerely, what I just said was xenophobic. There are plenty of liberals who will not give you a solution to the issue of the southern border immigration issue that would tell you that because I want to put America's interest first, and then as we can help those that further American interests, let us help them. Sounds like I'm racist, right? Well, according to liberal Democrats who don't want to deal with this issue, I am. But then you force liberal Democrats like Eric Adams to deal with the issue, and look what you get. You get an Eric Adams that's sending out flyers, literally passing out flyers from the city of New York. Dear illegal alien, they're not saying this, but this is my characterization. Dear illegal alien, please, when considering where to illegally settle in the United States of America, don't come to New York City. New York City is closed. We're full. Thank you, Eric Adams and the city of New York. 3641 says, the New York City mayor said their cup runneth over, which implies a blessing. So let's keep blessing them with the illegal aliens. I agree, Sandra. I think we should bless them and bless them and bless them again until they're over-blessed, until maybe liberals, instead of pointing fingers at Republicans like Greg Abbott or Ron DeSantis or conservatives in southern and border states, perhaps they'll begin realizing that their solutions aren't solutions at all. They're making the problem worse with the porous southern border. Plus, I'm just referencing the people that are coming over honestly, that just want a better life. Along with those people are people who are coming over dishonestly, that want to smuggle human beings, that want to traffic children, that want to traffic fentanyl and other drugs, that are bringing gang-related violence with them. And yes, what we found out just recently in our community, these people are also coming over to rape our children. Hello, Franklin, Tennessee. I mean, if that's not putting too fine a point on it, I don't know what is. So there's that story going on in New York, and it's just it is a ridiculous admission, and maybe unintentional, but a ridiculous admission that sanctuary cities don't work, because with sanctuary cities come an overrun and an overflow and an overburden on the community itself and on the infrastructure of the community. In the meantime, I mentioned Ron DeSantis in Florida. Florida has new standards for black history. And the fervor over those new standards, reading from the Washington Times article here, has reached the White House. You may not have heard that Vice President Kamala Harris went to Jacksonville to decry a provision that says slaves in some instances benefited from skills that they learned in captivity. Harris told a crowd Friday, I guess earlier today that was, they insult us in an attempt to gaslight us and will not have it. Adults know what slavery really involved. It involved rape, it involved torture, it involved taking a baby from their mother, it involved some of the worst examples depriving people of humanity in our world. To hear Kamala Harris, and I'm not going to play you the audio, to hear Kamala Harris, you would think that Florida schools were teaching that slavery was a good thing. And that's intentional. Obviously, Florida schools are not teaching that slavery is a good thing. Slavery was an evil institution. Let's repeat it. Slavery was and is an evil institution. By the way, slavery still goes on. Right now, today, slavery is going on around the world. And sadly, the Democrat Party in the United States of America would have you not believe that, and they would want you to believe that Republicans like slavery. That's the implication, when obviously it's not the case. They're using this as a way to pick off conservative-minded individuals and people that don't want woke policies and incorrect history taught in our schools in public education. The updates to the standards were required by a law signed by Governor Ron DeSantis, which was called the Stop Wrongs to Our Kids and Employees Act, or Stop Woke Act. In that Stop Woke Act, they stopped the dissemination of instruction that was deemed to be racially charged, and instead, clarification in the document says, quote, instruction includes how slaves developed skills which could be applied for their personal benefit. That, according to the Florida Board of Education. For that, the Vice President of the United States chooses to divide America by claiming that the state of Florida is teaching that slavery was good. Paraphrasing her language there. That's another latest headline as we're pouring over some of the news headlines that you need to know about before you get home. Quick timeout. Lee Greenwood has spoken out in support of Jason Aldean. I'll tell you that story next. On the Drive, no Brian Wilson, Matt in for Brian on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Or is that real?
Indeed. Thank you, Mac Morey. We look forward to those headlines coming up in about 5 minutes or so. Matt Murphy in for Brian Wilson. Brian back on Monday. Got a little family in town, having a family outing. Hope you've got big plans for the weekend as well, and hope you keep dry. Nasty showers moving through southern Tennessee and northern Alabama as we speak. We experienced some of that yesterday, and hope everybody's dry and safe and sound. So turning our attention back to Washington, D.C. for just a moment before Mac Morey takes over with the newscast. Just another example, and there are plenty of these to go over. Another example of President Joe Biden deciding on wokeness rather than having the best person for the job do the job. Here's the latest story that just broke earlier this afternoon. President Biden, according to Fox News, has overruled the Pentagon and chosen Admiral Lisa Franchetti to lead the Navy, making her the first woman, if she's confirmed, to be a Pentagon service chief and the first female member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Now, in and of itself, I don't have any issue if she happens to be the most qualified person for the job. But sadly, according to the Pentagon and according to Joe Biden's own Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, she's not the most qualified person for the job, but Joe Biden doesn't care because she's female. Now, we went over this when he selected Ketanji Brown Jackson to become the next Supreme Court Associate Justice, when he made it clear on the campaign trail and fulfilled that promise when an opening became available that he was going to select an African-American female. And then he simultaneously said the oddest thing. He said, I'm selecting an African-American female, and I'm going to select the best person for the job. Well, both of those things cannot be necessarily true unless it just as so happens that the best person for a job is an African-American female. But what you do if you make that determination first, once again, nothing against those individuals who are in those roles are considered as applicants for the job. But if you exclude half of the population because they're not female, and then you exclude another 40 some odd % of the population because they're not African American, you're selecting not from 100% of the qualified applicants at this point. And I'm just applying national statistics to my statistics here. They might be slightly off. But instead of picking from 100% of the applicants, you're now selecting from 6% of the applicants. You understand how the applicant pool might drop in terms of their ability to do the job if you do that in any job that you're trying to fill. To say the least, the job of Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court. So he's done this in the past. I mean, heck, in a less serious way, and I say less serious because it is an absolute joke every time I watch it, and we watch these things so you don't have to, the press conferences by Karine Jean-Pierre. Is Karine Jean-Pierre genuinely the best person for that job? Now, that's Joe Biden's selection. Fine, Joe Biden can pick whatever press secretary he wants to select. If he wants to look like Boo Boo the Clown every day, thanks to his press secretary, so be it. I mean, if there's one person in America that she certainly does a better job than, it would be Joe Biden when he gets out in public. But this woman is not ready for prime time. Yet, she's African American and she's gay. And that was the most important thing for Joe Biden. And now, apparently, it's more important that his next selection to lead the Navy is female rather than the most qualified. Now, that's not according to me. I don't know if Lisa Franchetti is the most qualified or not. But I think that Joe Biden would lean on his Pentagon chief. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin recommended the president select Admiral Samuel Paparo, the current commander of the Navy's Pacific Fleet, according to multiple reports. In a statement today, this afternoon, however, Joe Biden noted how Franchetti is, quote, an unprecedented choice for such a high-level military post due to her sex. Well, I thought, are we sure that's what she assigns herself? Joe, have you asked? Anyway, she's the second woman ever to achieve the rank of 4-star admiral in the Navy. Bully for her. Kudos for her. Nothing against her. Nothing against women in the military. I just want the best person for the job. And your people that you hand selected to run the Department of Defense say she's not the best person for the job, Mr. President. Why did you pick her over Samuel Paparo? Well, obviously because she's female, because that's the way we do things now in the Biden administration. And this guy wants to be president for the next 5.5 years. Admiral Lisa Franchetti, as our next Chief of Naval Operations, will bring 38 years of dedicated service to our nation as a commissioned officer, including in her current role as Vice Chief of Naval Operations. Through her career, she's demonstrated extensive expertise in both operational and policy awareness. Well, let's hope she's a better selection than some of your other hand-picked, gender-based, or sexually orientated-based picks that you've made over the years. It's 31 minutes after the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy and you until 7 o'clock tonight. Mark Levin after then. We call it a weekend. And we're back on Monday. I'm in my normal slot between noon and 3. Brian Wilson back in the saddle between 3 and 7 on The Drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We've had such a great time at the GlockStore. We wanted to finish up, not finish up because I have a couple of other stories to tell you about, but my boy Aaron Spradlin got back from his time in the shooting room. First and foremost, how awesome is the shooting? I mean, it's not a lane, it's a room. How awesome
No,
is
it's awesome. I can't wait to see the rest of the facility. This is our first time here. And
you haven't even been to the big room.
Oh, no, I hear the big room's awesome.
The big room is good.
I look forward to seeing it.
Well, and I haven't even begun to experience these types of things because I'm just getting back into training and practice, and Dan Hughes and some of the other crew on the training side of things are helping me out. And see how I'm setting up. I'm lowering expectations before I ask you how you guys did. So we're just starting it. But they set up like walls, and, they do night. You do like night, like low light. You call low light shooting. So, I mean, it's like real world. You've been in the real world. You've been in these fights. So they're trying to simulate that thing for us. So, how was it?
The one thing that's different is nothing's coming back at you.
Well, that's true.
That's an okay difference, by the way. I'm
Chris
good.
Clark just grabbed the mic and said, I'm getting on here.
Wait a minute. What is Clark doing over there? Introduce your buddy over there.
So this is Chris Clark. He is my business partner with Pale Horse GRS, the security firm that we run together.
Yeah, nice. How'd you do, Chris?
Well, 10.25.
10.25.
Yep.
How'd you do, Spradlin?
7.4.
I knew you were going to whip my butt. I knew it.
I'm lying.
We actually did a 7.4.
I did a 7.4. I had 13 rounds in the mag, not 14.
Oh, no, so you didn't get the last shot.
And I threw one. So you got me. You got me. I think he might have had 4 or 5 boxes of ammo before he started.
In your defense, in everyone's defense, I will say that Dan and I spent an hour getting me to my 9.5.
And Dan Hughes is a good guy to show you how to do it.
And he knows how to do it.
We know Dan very well.
I spent an hour getting that 9.5 laid down. So anybody that came in and laid down time, do not be ashamed. And here, I'll give you a hat anyway.
Wow.
Well, thank you so much.
How about that?
How about I give you one of these?
Not you,
Oh.
Chris.
Yeah, I got the 10.25, Aaron.
I guess you did.
I get the GlockStore hat. And by the way, I'm going to work with Dan myself and get better, and we'll go again.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Rematch.
Oh no, I'm
in the
looking
big
forward
room.
to it. I mean, because it's like, Kirby, you know this from golf, right? I mean, you and I play golf, but Aaron, you play golf as well.
Yep.
You never get to a point where you go, okay, I've figured this out. I'm done now. It's the same way with shooting, right?
Absolutely. And if you don't do it, you lose it.
Perishable skill.
Amen.
Always a perishable skill. Well, thank you guys for stopping by, man. You know how much I appreciate it.
No, we love you, man.
Now,
Thank
Chris,
you.
how do you keep up with this guy? How do you put up with him?
I actually run circles around him, but I'm a younger guy.
And that's why it works.
I'll just leave it. You can't even tell me who you provide security for. That's how tight your security is.
Yes, sir.
But I like that.
Some of the ones that we can tell we put on, our site, who they are. But, yeah, no, we just kind of quietly go about our business.
Is that getting, while I have you here, I'm inspired to ask you this question. We hear about these stars on stage getting crap thrown at them and just all of this other nonsense. And you live that world. And for those that don't know, Aaron has provided security for international celebrities for a long time.
Yeah.
Is that getting worse? I mean, let me put it this way. The wife and I were watching this 50th anniversary of the Nashville, what used to be called Fanfare.
Yeah.
Right? Where George Jones and Dolly Parton and Tammy Wynette and, Reba McEntire, they're sitting at tables, and there's just fans lined out the door, and they're just signing autographs. Garth Brooks sat for 23 hours. After No Fences came out, he sat for 23 hours and signed autographs for people. And everybody was calm, and everybody was nice, and they took pictures, and nobody threw stuff. And they can't do that anymore.
Not today, no.
Not today, because in that day, people had respect.
Yeah.
And I've been in front of 80,000 people while the artist is on stage, and they'll throw a beach ball or they'll throw something up there, but nothing malicious like what you saw the other day.
Right.
Was that Miranda? Who was that got something whipped out of him?
No. I mean, there were a couple of them. Miranda's was a little bit of a different situation because Miranda got ticked off.
Oh, that's right. She did. I forgot that's what she did. I knew she was in the news.
But no, I think Harry Styles had a battery thrown at him.
It's ridiculous.
A battery.
And one, you've spent who knows how much to be there. Now you just hit the reason you're there in the face.
And you just close the concert down.
Yeah, it's pointless. And that goes all the way back to no one in their right mind, especially the Possum, Dolly, Kenny Rogers. If we go Garth, I'll even go Garth goes. Garth goes back much further than the ones that are now currently here, even though he's still doing it. Nobody would throw anything at King George. Wow. So it was respect for the artist, respect for what they were doing. You were so excited to be there. And I've come from the lineage of Loretta Lynn. She's a cousin of the family. Yeah. Could you imagine somebody throwing something at Loretta Lynn? No. It would never have happened. And now it's the psychotic mentality of the people that don't think they can. I mean, it's the same like people punching people in the face, but we won't get into that conversation.
But it circles back to a story that I started the show with, and it's the San Francisco business owner that took it upon themselves to try to get a homeless person out. There's a homeless person in front of their business store, and he begged and the cops wouldn't. Nobody would do anything. So he takes the law into his own hands, which just creates danger and chaos for everyone involved. When the legal system is not working for the people that pay the taxes, that pay into the system, they start taking it upon themselves to deal with it themselves. You get a little vigilantism going, and then you got a lot of problems. You exacerbate the problem. I mean, Daniel Penny did the right thing. Daniel Penny probably did the right thing in New York City on the subway, I believe.
I do too.
But he only had to do what he did because, sadly, the New York City Police Department can't fully do their jobs because the politicians won't let them.
Absolutely. We had a conversation about this very thing. It's just not the law enforcement today, and my business partner here being a former law officer as well as a military veteran, even in his day, he could be a cop.
Yeah.
Can't be a cop anymore, and that's why. And we had this conversation earlier about why things are running amok in Nashville. It's because if they do anything, the next thing you know, they're hooked up and they're in jail.
And police officers, as good as they are, as smart as they are, as dedicated as they are to protect and to serve, for the vast majority of them, they're also human beings. And Absolutely. If you get beaten down over and over again, the morale of that team will eventually suffer greatly as a result. All right, I've got to run.
Okay.
Aaron, thank you. Chris, thank you for everything.
Thank you.
I appreciate you, buddy. It is 40. Oh, wait, I don't want to go too soon. Thank you for moving my thing. It's 47 after the hour on Super Talk 99.7. A couple of quick headlines before we get out of here. Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden, we now know, have allegedly coerced, quote-unquote, Burisma co-founder and CEO into paying millions of dollars to them in exchange for pressuring the Ukrainian government. That is the story of the week, and I believe it's the story for the foreseeable future regarding politics in Washington, D.C. and beyond. How much the mainstream media will cover it remains to be seen. So far, they've attempted to do their best to cover it up as opposed to cover it because they've picked sides. That's their home team guy, and they don't want to besmirch their home team guy. But at some point, the smoke gets so great, they have to at least acknowledge the smoke exists. And now they're never going to dump Biden. Well, I say never. When he becomes too much of a political liability, they very likely will do just that. It remains to be seen. It's been the story of the week, and we'll continue to cover it throughout the course of the summer into the fall. And before you know it, it's 2024, and then the election season is really on. I've loved being here for Brian Wilson. Maybe a little time when we come back to wrap things up on The Drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, What we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Just a few moments to say, hope you have a wonderful and happy weekend. I've loved filling in for Brian Wilson these 4 hours on the drive. Don't forget Mark Levin coming up next. After that, Ben Shapiro, Red Eye Radio. And I would like to offer a little plug here. Sunday night into Monday morning, midnight to 5 a.m. If you happen to be up, check out Red Eye Radio. Yours truly, Matt Murphy, will be hosting said proceedings between midnight and 5 Sunday night into Monday morning. Join us at noon for another edition of the Matt Murphy Show, noon to 3, and Brian Wilson back Monday as well from 3 until 7. Have a wonderful weekend, folks. Take care.